Welcome back, everybody, as we're nearly done with the day, and JustF6 is just one game away from somehow qualifying in the Smite Challenger circuit with a tough victory right there in set number 3. Aggro joined by Mifflin here on the Consortium of Knowledge, a.k.a. the Bologna set.
Why do they call it the Bologna set? Oh, yeah.
There you have it. Look, JustF6 have gone through kind of the console ringer so far. First, they had to go up against a Porsche Coast team in 60. They did lose that set. Then they just beat up on Rapio in a very, very long, hard-fought set. Now they go up against DineOhSaw and a lot of these other console boys, in addition to Stefan and Froisan. How well do you think they're going to be able to do against this Froi in the first-time combined team?
I mean, had you asked me before the last set just happened, I would have given it 100% to the Froi boys, as I like to call them. They should change their name, truly. I'll handle branding from here on out. But
okay.
Predators also, one of the most nutty solo laners there ever was out of console Europe. You know, Europe, the weaker scene historically, as I grin slyly. But,
yeah, why are you grinning slyly there, Mifflin?
You know, we used to poke fun at the EU boys. We'd call them the Rapio boys because that's the only player we were truly worried about. But
you know, after you left, they became a pretty decent region. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it was you keeping them down.
Yeah, I was. I kept my foot firmly placed on the throat of Europeans' console scene, and they just couldn't get me off. I had to remove myself.
Sounds like a personal problem. Well, we'll have to see if this team can do a better job now up against JustF6, because the other console boys have gone 1-1 against them. We'll see how it turns out here. Picks and bans ready, as JustF6 have gone with pretty consistent compositions. It's been a lot of backline dive for the jungler, Sotos. I mean, he loves the Thor, the Thanatos that last game, and Oti has been a real standout member in that solo lane.
I agree with that. Backline dive is so good at this level of play, especially this cusp right before you hit the real true top level. The coordination from these teams isn't 100% there. So if the jungler can find himself onto the mage, generally it does result in a kill. However, at the top level, you might have a little bit more coordination. You need a bit more than just one diver to get back there and finish him off.
Cuckoo Khan banned away by Froi in the first time combine pretty quickly, as Sotos' Hun Bats is taken off the board, though. With the performance that he had on the Thor versus the Hun Bats, maybe this is a bit of a blessing in disguise. Yemoja is open here first overall for Froi in the first time combine, and that's where I'm always going. If Yemoja's open, give it to me. I don't think there's any other god that matches that output, but seems like Froi would rather have the Persephone on their side. How about you? You feel the same way about Persephone over Yemoja?
So when I choose gods, especially gods like Yemoja, you have to consider the frustration factor. Geb, Khepri, Yemoja, they all bring that frustration factor in that I could go in, I could play perfectly, but Khepri's going to revive, Geb's going to drop a shield, and Yemoja, she's just going to heal everyone, also drop a shield, put up some walls, and then stun me forever.
Sounds like you didn't play perfectly.
Yeah, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't.
It sounds like you didn't. That is also so on brand for you to just want to frustrate the enemy with whatever gods you're picking. It's less about winning for Mifflin and more about winning his way, which is with you ending up as angry as you possibly can be. No Yemoja, though, on either side with both Bacchus and Horus.
Give it a second.
I don't think they're going to be picking it, bro. I mean, they've got a Bacchus on one side, a Horus on the other. We haven't seen Horus anywhere but support for a long time. And the Hachiman there as well for Froi. I mean, this is just, when you think about safe hunters, it's Jingwei and it's Hachiman for me as the two safest.
I'm looking at this Scylla hover right now in absolute disbelief. Yemoja's still available. But as you said,
Bacchus.
You can still put the Yemoja in solo, and if you ask Weekend, Yemoja can go into jungle.
Nah, okay, pick the Yemoja every game and then put it in support and never anywhere else. It's a trap to put it anywhere else. Vamana instead of the Scylla.
That's smart.
I saw Finch's thumb go up over to my left. He's a fan of this pick, and I have to agree with him. Vamana just feels like he is really hard to deal with right now, and Oti in particular has played him pretty well today.
I mean, speaking of that backline dive, Vamana's going to lodge himself in your backline, and you're not going to get him out. He's going to go into that big baby form. What's Persephone going to do about it? She can't ult him away. He's CC immune in his ultimate. Her jump is relatively short range and on an insanely large cooldown. The second that Persephone uses her escape ability, Vamana's like, all right, bro, see ya. And that's exactly how it's going to go down.
I agree. I like that matchup a lot for Vamana, not so much as the Persephone players. Froi in the first time combine, ban away a couple mages. That's Merlin and Janus off the table for them. And the Thor gets all the way down to this point. I mean, I feel like if you're JustF6, and we've seen them, this is the third set we've seen them today. We've seen them play a lot of Smite. These are 4 of their gods that they would like to get just about every game. At least that's the way they've picked so far today. Just waiting on what Doku's going to play in that mid lane.
Maybe a Yamoja.
Hope not. Chulainn, Bastet. We see very little Bastet, Mifflin, but I know you think we should be seeing more.
Bastet has so much ludicrous damage within her kit that you can't really justify saying she's bad. She's going to be a one-man artillery army. It's like she's like the Iron Man of Smite. She's just a normal person with a ton of weapons. That's a bad. You know what?
That's a really bad example.
So Bologna's like the Iron Man of Smite, is what I was trying to say. And Bastet's awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Send
that
tweet.
Works for me. Send tweet is right. Listen, bro, you would have gotten away with that if I hadn't just casted a 3-hour set. But unlucky for you, I did just cast a 3-hour set, so I'm calling you out on that. I'm not getting baited by this Yamoja hover. No chance. The Scylla hover, I imagine, will go through.
It shouldn't. Scylla sucks.
Doku played the Raijin so well, and then they go, nah, man, give me the Scylla. Now, there is some merit. Root cripple against Bastet. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's all right. Crippling anyone with a jump is pretty good, but picking Scylla for it, if you want to.
Man, this is the consortium of knowledge and the Scylla hater lounge all at the same time. We'll see if the Scylla hater lounge extends to the casting booth, as we've got Finch and Gormizer standing by for game number 1.
Oh, it absolutely does. Let's go into game number 1 between Froi and JustF6, who we've been following along with all day. I now stan CaptainOti, by the way, after that performance he had earlier on. I find myself rooting for him. But let's talk a little bit about this draft. We're seeing some Horus, who I feel like we should be seeing more of. Bastet, who I feel like we should be seeing more of here in this game. And JustF6 with the same draft they've been running all day.
I was going to say, it's the same thing. Like, we can really only talk about Froi's draft here because we've broken down this same draft from JustF6 at least 3 times a day. I can't count how many times they've started the Jing Bacchus. And hey, if it works, it works. And I'm not going to take it away from them. But they have gone Jing, Bacchus, Vamana, Thor, Scylla, at least in the first game every single day, or every single set so far today. And man, I actually really like what we're seeing out of Froi. Now that I've gotten that out of there, I was kind of flipping out for a second there just because we've seen it so much. But having the Bastet, like you said, something you see a lot more, paired with the Persephone, a lot of good damage there. And I think she can make up for what you might see out of it, Mr. Stefan. I'm expecting a lot out of him on this Persephone, but as we've seen in the last couple of days, sometimes it works out wonderfully. Sometimes you're just off the mark and maybe it doesn't quite close out the way you want it to. Then you add in the Horus into that mix. I think you've got a good little trio in the middle here that is going to just provide a lot of power, a lot of utility to this team.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried that Froi is kind of control light, which is why I think the Persephone is a really good pick for them. The ultimate's going to taper over that.
Yeah.
But Horus does have a lot of really good tools, right? He does have the stun, the knock-up, but it's not quite the same as some of the other Guardians that you see brought. And the Predators on the Chulainn really doesn't have a whole lot at his disposal unless he's in that Rage transformation. So that could potentially be a problem, but hey, maybe if Froisan could find an early gank, then they won't have any problems. Aggression from DineOhSaw. In comes the leap. The Bastet finds the roots, but the knock-up is perfect from Rottwen to provide the peel, and Totti just barely makes it out.
And DineOhSaw using that ranged auto as best as he could, but unfortunately for him, it's not going to be enough. Luckily for Froisan, you get rid of Totti. Totti's going to lose a lot of this farm to the tower here, and you steal away this purple buff, and you can take away the Alpha Harpy if you really want to, but as we've pointed out in the past, it's not necessarily worth as much, especially trying to split it 3 ways if you have Curve maybe rotate into it. Take the purple, get the buff, as you can see now on DineOhSaw, and then get on out of there. Froisan backs up, speed buffs up. He knows exactly where he wants to go.
And DineOhSaw has picked up this blink. I became a pretty big DineOhSaw fan watching him over his time in the console league. And you know, a lot of attention went to Vaporish Coast. I think deservedly so. Obviously, he's very talented. But I think we're kind of forgetting that DineOhSaw was his partner in crime for a lot of that at the very beginning when he first made that name for himself. They had that separation last year where Coast ended up playing with Switch a lot more, and you saw DineOhSaw with Davey. But I still think that this guy is a really strong player in the support role. I'm glad to see him here as part of the SCC, and hopefully he'll be able to make some noise.
And I mean, we've been able to see it so far this game. He's been very aggressive in this lane. Like, Kerv has just been chilling. DineOhSaw is ready to go. He wants to fight, and he wants to be in there. Even just now, Totti was backing, and he's just like, wait a minute, I can try to stop this.
I can get in there.
And just the attempts to fight, the attempt to find anything, it showcases where his strength is going to be in this lane. And I think, honestly, in this game, which is, yeah, he might not have the most control, but he's got some prot shred, very close range knockup. I doubt we're going to see that come into huge plays in the late game, but the fact that he can then give himself a ranged auto, drop ship the entire team, heal you, and shred their protections and set up someone like Stefan or Kerv to just melt you down. Or, if I'm talking about melting, the person who does the most damage on this team, which will be Froisan as it goes on. It's just going to be interesting to see how they handle that kind of power curve for him, because DineOhSaw is definitely going to be a little more utility-based than I think we'd see out of some Guardians.
I think so, yeah. He'll have a little bit of extra help coming from that heal, too. But DineOhSaw's partner in this frontline war is Predators. And if you've watched Predators play for any extended period of time, then you know that my man is aggressive. And I know that we say that a lot, but Predators takes it to the highest degree that you can think of. There are so many times when you're going to have to scroll way out of frame to find the next person that is on his team coming in to back him up, because that's how much he likes to go dive to try and create space for everybody else. And it's just like this, exactly what we're seeing now. He's going into the enemy jungle, looking to see what he can take. Predators loves to play this way. He's going to be on the enemy side of the map, probably more than his own.
Yeah, and honestly, it just makes me think, if you go back in time to where we saw Wolves, but right now Predators maybe too deep. DineOhSaw in the neighborhood. This dunk is going to be coming down.
iSotos can't find anything with the initial knockup, and Predators finds First Blood. Has some backup here for Froi as well as the root ends up coming out. They'll complete the dive under the tier 2, and that's 2 quick ones on the board for Froi.
That's exactly what you need in that kind of scenario. iSotos is trying to make the judgment call, but because of the angle he was at, you couldn't quite see as much, I think, as he needed to there. And so Froisan and DineOhSaw kind of able to make a free rotation. Even if you go in there, you're like, well, you know, it's a 2v1 at first. We'll melt this guy, then turn on the next guy. Didn't have the melt, I think, that they thought was going to follow up. Oti, even though he's been phenomenal on this Vamana today, did not hit any marks there. I don't know if he was able to actually hit anything because of how quickly they just dove in on him.
Yeah, I don't think they recognized just how outnumbered they were going to be in that fight. And I love this from Froi. I think this is how you're going to have to play if Predators is your solo laner, because Predators are going to make that exact same play whether you rotate or not. On your team, I mean, his own team.
Yeah, no, he's always going to be back there. He's looking for the fight. That's actually, again, something I was going to say was, like, the two players that come to my mind when I think aggressive solo console players is Wolves and Predators.
Yes.
And honestly, both of them have been very successful. Predators.
Yeah, they were 1A and 1B for a while.
Is just going to be up there, and if Froisan's not there, maybe he gets dunked on and he's melted. But the fact that they had DineOhSaw and Froisan roaming as this duo right now, it's been very adventurous for them, but very crucial, at least in taking control of this map. I mean, they're still going for some aggression.
And I know that Froisan is on the way. He leaps in, but they were ready for it. Rottwen going to try and use the belt, but Purification Beads allows us to get away from the stun. Can't find the flop either, so Froisan makes it out of there. Another thing to note is that on that aggression that we saw earlier on iSotos, who fell for that first blood, his Purification Beads went down, and they're still down for another minute, so he's not the safest jungler in the world. No. Might not matter if there's not another fight, but just one more thing to keep in mind as Froisan had to use his beads here too.
Froisan, I think, honestly, we're going to see it maybe come out of Froisan a little bit more. It depends on where Stefan comes into the mix for these fights. Yeah. But Froisan, if you're looking at the fights he's going into, Scylla, she's going to be able to CC him. Bacchus, he's going to be able to CC him. Same thing, Oti, maybe not CC him, although I guess the knockup will always be there. And iSotos can look for a stun. So right now, DineOhSaw is looking for something else.
It's got to be the blue buff that's just about to spawn, and Predators is already aggressive. So in comes Mr. Stefan and DineOhSaw, but they cannot find the stun. That's a couple ultimates already expended, really just for pressure on this blue buff. I think that we saw this earlier on in the day, right? Repeated ganks on solo, stripping away the blue, and trying to get your solo laner ahead. You got to make sure you transfer this lead if you get it to other parts of the map.
Yeah, you don't want the freshly forged syndrome, where the team fights just don't quite come in for you. So if you're Froi, you're definitely looking towards what can we continue doing, not just on the map, but in terms of our engagement. And admittedly, that's why I like their draft. I think Stefan ultimately is going to be an ultimate machine, but you're going to need Predators' help to get there.
Predators does have the Rage transformation coming, but there's 3 members here, and that's just too many. He bit off a little bit more than he could chew, but This is all within expectation if Predators is your solo laner. For every double kill first blood you get one of these also where he dies alone behind the tier 1.
Look, I'm just saying, 1/3 of the time so far, of the times that I've seen him cross that tower line before it's even taken a 1/10 of its HP, he's been helped, or he's fallen, right? The other 2 times, his team was there to save him, whether it was using an ult or just diving in for him. It's worked out so far, so I don't expect him to slow down anytime soon. The only issue now is that that first kill he was able to be a part of, and the second kill he was able to be a part of, we're maybe going to give him an advantage over Oti, but now Oti is sitting absolutely comfortable. He's gone for the breastplate, so he's going to have a little bit of extra mana. Doesn't necessarily care as much that this blue buff is getting stripped away, although the cooldown reduction would also be helpful. And he's got that physical protection to kind of keep himself in the fight.
These oracles are controlled by JustF6, but they're not going to do anything else around this Gold Fury for now, so they're going to continue to fall back. Really, the middle and left side of the maps have been relatively quiet so far. All of this action has happened over on the solo side, and I think the real beneficiaries of that have got to be kervv and Totti, right? They just get to build up comfortably over there in that long lane.
Yeah, they're just chilling.
And I think we've noticed this with Totti, is that he's going to rush this Aussie almost every single game. We've seen him do it almost every single game so far. I don't love it, especially with Ninja Tabai. You are missing a lot of power in this build, but it's clearly comfort for him as another blue buff fight's about to kick off here. Gormizer and Sodas is already low. He makes it back out of there with that hammer, because the rest of the team is going to look for Rottwen instead. He gets locked inside the grasp of death and an easy kill.
And that's exactly why Mr. Stefan is going to be very deadly in these rotations in a team fight. That's the perfect example for it. They burn the beads on Thor, they get a kill, and, well, who cares whether or not you get the blue buff this time around? You come in and get something you're looking for, which I think is pretty solid. But circling back over to the Aussie, and I want to say lack of power, as you had pointed out. Aussie is like one of my favorite passives late game, because it's that, oh, hey, I'm almost dead. Here's one camp. There's 3 people up. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm full health again. But it doesn't do, as like you said, as much for you early. Lifesteal's really good. The attack speed's nice, but you only get the 20 power versus what you're going to see out of the Devo's Gauntlets, or what you would see out of like a Bloodforge, which would give you the 75 drop. So it's a definite slower curve, which I think is why what we've seen out of JustF6 has been Totti doing almost nothing early on, and then 16 minutes, 25 minutes as you add on time, and depending on these last couple of games, 40 minutes. Totti all of a sudden just starts being part of the fight more than anything, causing trouble for everyone that stands in his way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the argument I was here for this Aussie, right, is that it feels like that's the best tool for trading in lane. But it's not as if Totti does a whole lot of that, especially not on
he's
Jing's
just
way.
chilling.
He's mostly just chilling, which is why it seems so odd that he wouldn't go for a more sort of greedy power bank item in that slot. But to each their own, I don't think you can ever say it's strictly wrong, as there's aggression happening in the middle lane, but RemagDoku makes it out of there. It's just probably a little bit less than optimal, I'd say, but certainly still an item that Jingwei can use well, so, you know, I can't harp on it too much.
If you want to look at it, I mean, they've won half the games that he's done it in. They've lost half the games he's done it in. This actually could be the tiebreaker, depending on how often we see him go that Aussie first and how this one goes. But if they keep up this pace right now, I mean, they're not too far behind. This Gold Fury would help equalize everything.
But it's not going to be a secret. Froi should recognize this is happening, but the only person particularly close is kervv, and they know he's there. He's walled off. The objective low. In comes the Horus. JustF6 secure the objective well, but Mr. Stefan took a shot from middle lane, and the Grasp of Death actually has lockdown 1. It's Rottwen who could be in some trouble, but if they only end up losing the support for this, it's absolutely still worse. DineOhSaw wants to cut him off, but he ends up getting away with the dash. RemagDoku, though, drops in the middle lane. That's Froisan that caught up to him.
I mean, normally we say support for Gold Fury is going to be worthwhile. As much as it sucks to lose your mid laner, yeah, it's fine. It's still worthwhile, especially with the way things are going. He has the Spear of Desolation online, so he's doing fine over there, although we'll give Mr. Stefan some necessary gold. iSotos is going to get caught out, and he might get melted before he can go up.
He ends up falling to the dot damage from Froisan, and if you needed more proof that this is how Predators is going to play, you've got every bit of it you could possibly need. Up in the speed buff, behind the tier 2, in between the Phoenix. I'm telling you, that's just how my man likes to play Smite. It does end up setting for one more kill. I believe they also got the red buff invade on the back of that, so even though they didn't lose the Fury, 2 kills, a buff, I think they managed to get enough back to kind of keep it even.
And honestly, it still keeps them ahead, which is more than anything they needed. Actually, at this point, they're 2,000 gold ahead, so I think they've ended up further ahead than they were pre-Gold Fury.
Yeah,
you can see just a little bit, but being able to build a lead that big, plus this experience lead, you're feeling more than fine letting that Gold Fury go down the way you want. Now, the next Primal Fury, maybe you want to be a part of just to make sure things don't go out of hand, but I mean, 13 minutes in, you've got this big of a lead. Kerv has been a little bit more a part of these fights than we've seen out of Totti. And I think that's going to start making a big impact here as they start finishing off these next tier of items. Rage already online for Kerv.
You're right. He got his finish a little bit ahead of Totti. That's a big deal. Should be able to get that stacked soon. But the real biggest deal is between Froisan and SCC, like without any doubt, right? I mean, it's a 3-level disparity between them, and you really need your Thor to be able to come online a little bit sooner than this. The good news is Thor still has, 2 stuns. He has some ways to contribute even if he's behind, but obviously it's nowhere near as much as what you'd expect at this point. So they got to do something to help SCC catch back up.
Playing the game of the Sentry Wards right there in mid. You know what? I should stop being surprised when we come over to the solo lane to see everyone pushed up against this blue buff because of how often it's going to be. But this time it wasn't Predators, it was Froisan. And granted, it was only because Froisan was here waiting on Predators to come forward and then take said blue buff. And they still want more. They know that there's someone lurking in the waters. They've seen Thor, and they're going to be going deep for him.
Trying to see if they can find him, but he can hammer over the wall and make it out of there without too much trouble. I like these solo lane builds, though, to talk about these a bit. It's Mystical Mail for Predators, something I think a lot of solo laners are picking up, but especially Chulainn. It goes so well with his second ability to add onto the Pulse. And on the other side, Oti has the Shoguns, which increases the attack speed, which you know that the Vamana wants. As Pyromancer started up, but JustF6 are nearby for this one, Gormizer. I don't think it's going to be free. Crush over the wall allows JustF6 to strip it away into the I'm a Monster, but he doesn't actually find anyone, and now potentially a chance for the collapse on the Rottwen. He's been knocked up, and Froisan gobbles him up.
I mean, still going to be worthwhile overall for JustF6. Stealing away that Pyromancer is huge in keeping them in this, but it's going to be how do you follow up on this? What's your disengage like just as much as your engage? And Doku's going to be able to get out of here, but that was incredibly close for them. And it also showcases what Scylla is good at. Rottwen was able to contribute a fair amount of that too, and he's done it today where he stole a Fire Giant.
Yeah.
But Scylla, if we talk about her as being only damage worthy, and that's kind of all she does, the next best thing you can say is that she is really good at securing objectives away from somebody just because she will burst it down faster than you. So she's got that going for her, and that's kind of where I think I see Doku maybe transitioning into this late game. As time goes on, he's going to be very important for JustF6 around Fire Giants, around Furies, and around Pyromancers. And if he can follow up on some damage, he's going to be really solid on kills.
Yeah, I think between Crush and I'm a Monster, he's got the best confirm here on the map right now, does RemagDoku, so that could be something worth keeping an eye on as this game goes. Another thing worth looking at is the anti-heal from Froi. That was a big conversation earlier on when we saw these teams playing up against the Vamana, right? Was how much do you commit to blowing him up during that Colossal Fury, during that big baby? They've got the Divine Ruin. They've got the Brawler's Beat Stick available. This Talisman could easily end up going into something like a Pestilence, but no Cursed Ankh. Look at all the relics. Those are already full up. Or excuse me, there is one there for DineOhSaw. So yeah, they're good to go with this one. They're geared up.
Fully upgraded as well on top of that, so it's going to be helpful for everything that you would want from it, being able to potentially deal with Oti. And again, that's been one of the biggest things. You roll back to, what, game 1 of the last set, and Oti's biggest thing was just making sure Persephone didn't play the game. Picarina was just not allowed to be anywhere near the fight. And now you've got the itemization going in your favor, and only because it's Chulainn do I expect it to actually turn into a Pestilence. I think that'd be more beneficial there. That it's all of a sudden, and there it is, the full Pestilence buy. It's going to just shut down Oti.
Tier 1 tower dive, though, and with that ultimate ticking, Froisan is coming into the backline trying to take care of Totti, but he makes it out of there. But up in the sky is SCC, but I think they might be out of range for the dunk. He ends up coming down instead onto the Persephone, and with working together with Oti, they're able to take him down quite easily. Mr. Stefan falls, but still gets that Grasp of Death off. In comes the Cursed Ankh to try and lock down the ability for this Vamana to come in and help out, but the wall stops him from getting any further to the backline. JustF6 will have to settle for their one pick.
Honestly, I think it's worthwhile. You get rid of what I would argue is one of the biggest targets. Right now, Froisan is huge. I mean, 5-0-1, 2 levels ahead of his opponent on SCC, but stopping this Persephone from feeling potent is going to be big for you, and I think keeping her offline makes it easier for Oti as well as Rottwen to maybe be more of a factor in these fights.
Though, DineOhSaw is using the To the Skies to try and catch up with Totti, and he's already used the ultimate, but they end up missing the knock-up there from Predators, and that means easy for the Jing to make it out.
Well, and that just goes back to the conversation we were having earlier, right? The lack of engage, or maybe just potency they have in being able to kind of get in there and keep everyone locked down for them. On the other side, though, there's plenty of it. I mean, Thor dunks alone are going to be big, but Doku in the right position is going to root, 3 of you now since he's been able to finish off leveling up his 1. So you got to be careful in these narrow jungle corridors.
Primal Fury now getting low, below 2,000. JustF6 confirm their second Fury of the game, and Froi have not been able to contest them around those objectives. Look at the gold now, Gormizer. It's virtually tied up here at this point. There's still a bit of experience favoring Froi, but only 2,000 experience now, 18 minutes in, and an ultimate, it looks like, or not an ultimate, but some damage going the way of CaptainOti. Doesn't find a whole lot. I mean, I think JustF6 have tied this back up.
And when you look at it, that experience is almost all entirely in that Bastet. And I mean, as time goes on, she's still going to deal a lot of damage, but Thor has been more potent, and I think in the team fights, it's going to prove to be so. Froisan's been finding a lot of picks, but every time they have these huge groupings, it hasn't been a huge swing in his favor.
Predators making the rotation. I don't know if they recognize he's here in the jungle, but he does not have the blink. So if he wants to engage over the wall, it had to be a jump. The tier 1 tower ends up going down in favor of Froi. They've also gotten the tier 1 tower in mid, though JustF6 have gotten a couple tier 1s of their own. So far things still pretty darn even, but Froisan could be in some trouble. Manages to leap away. Rottwen doesn't want to commit the leap.
That last engagement was potentially a 3v4 because 2 members on the side of JustF6 were over there in solo lane, stripping away whatever buffs they could find as well as pushing down that tower, but still not a necessary, like, hey, I want to jump under a tier 2 fight that you want to take if you're Froi. So I admire their patience and being able to hold on to that, especially because now Pyromancer's going to be coming up as it just respawns. Fire Giant's going to start entering the conversation here 20 minutes in, so you have to be prepared for it. And honestly, if I'm looking at any of these objectives, you have to get rid of Doku first, because so far he's been able to take the Pyromancer away from you, and a big reason both of these Furies have fallen in favor of JustF6. Persephone's great, but you just don't have anything that screams objective secure to me on the side of Froi.
Not quite the same way that Scylla does. I got to agree with you on that one. Some aggression around the Fire Giant, but no one actually starting it up. Froisan manages to get the leap off in time to avoid the belly flop. And Predators, just be careful with the Mystical Mail. We saw him proc the Fire Giant by accident earlier. Pyromancer being burned quickly, and Froi finally able to claim an objective for themselves. JustF6 can't make it in time to contest that, but Pyromancer certainly not the end of the world, especially we're 20.5 minutes into the game. A little nice bit in the pocket for Froi, and if they want it back, they'll get back faster, but that's about it.
It just keeps you in the area faster. That's actually like my favorite thing about Pyromancer, because when you look at it like Gold Fury or actually any of the Furies, you have very tangible effects, although Primal Fury you might argue isn't tangible, it just helps you burn something a lot faster. Fire Giant, its effects are very obvious on paper, just straight up you know what you're getting. But Pyromancer, like being able to get back into a fight, let's say something, a big grouping around Fire Giant, you get poked out but you have Pyro, you're back in it before anything substantial can happen. And it's moments like that where, again, it showcases how important movement speed can be in pretty much all aspects of the game.
Wow, look at this build from RemagDoku. I'm getting the sense that he really wants to be able to blow up these frontliners, the Charon's Coin and the Soul Reaver and the Spear of Desolation. There's 3 of the first 4 items all dedicated to penetration for RemagDoku, which makes me think that when Predators or DineOhSaw try and initiate and start these fights off, they're going to be looking to counter and blow them up right away.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very well done from Doku. And what I like more is that Charon's Coin, he's been sitting on that restored artifact the entire game. He just now upgraded it. So he's waiting, you know, 4th item is typically where we saw a lot of that like percent pin being bought throughout years of Smite. And now it's still his 4th item ultimately coming online. But with 30%, like you said, Rottwen, other side, Predators, DineOhSaw are going to be under duress if they try to dive in on the Scylla. Even if they don't try to dive in on the Scylla, they're the ones that you're going to see near the Pyromancer, near the Fury, near the Fire Giant when they're trying to tank it. And that's just going to be free damage for Doku versus what you have out of Stefan, which again is going to give you a lot of percentage. But I haven't felt F6 dancing around the objectives as much. It's definitely been in Froi's kind of playbook right now. And so I'm feeling it more from the Scylla than I am so far from the Persephone.
It's just something that the Scylla can do really, really well.
It's hurt people.
Yeah, if they lock down someone on that front line, even a bit more than what Persephone can do, despite similarities in their build. Plenty, though, of that Anthill. It ended up being that Pestilence for Predators. He also has the Spectral armor with which to try and deal with Totti, who's building some crit now, and this Jing has the Rage and appears to be working on a Deathbringer there in that 5th slot. I like this Relic Dagger for DineOhSaw, too. You want as many Cursed Onks this game as you can get off. The next Fury going to be spawning here in about 5 seconds, though, and I got to imagine this is going to be a pretty big fight here, Gormizer, if they choose to fight around this, because the game is virtually deadlocked right now. You could potentially get a lot of momentum off the back of this.
I mean, JustF6 have been ready for it and waiting almost every single time, and I mean, for good reason. Again, they can take control of it, but Mr. Stefan was able to set up his guard.
Predators goes right to the back line, has the grasp of death coming in for Mr. Stefan as well. The Fury has already gotten by F6, but RemagDoku had no help coming his way, and Predators able to take him down quite easily in that rage form to the skies to try and lock down this Vamana. It nearly works. He gets the dash off, but they're still close. Mounted archery for the slow, but he blinks over the wall. He was out of combat, but that means Rottwen's now been left in the line of fire, and Kerv finds those shots easily. A 2-for-0 in favor of Froi.
They get that Oni Fury, and well, the waves are going to be helpful, but I don't know if it's going to make the big difference. Again, dropping 2 for any Fury is not going to feel worthwhile, especially because now, and you can kind of see it from Froi's movement, they're looking over towards fire. They want to get aggressive over here. They're going to strip the jungle. They're going to be looking for anything and everything they can find. If it might just be a tier 1, but it might be, as it looks like, the big buff on the board.
No relics available for CaptainOti, and no purification beads available for Totti. So this is going to be a trick defense for them, a tricky one, rather. But it looks like it was a bait. Froi dropped the objective entirely and instead come for the fight. And so far, they really have not gotten much out of that at all. They might be letting their window to do this Fire Giant at the 5v3 start to fade away as everyone's back up on the side of JustF6, and it looks like the window has closed. They're not going to be able to start at the FG.
Predators. At this point, he's tanky enough, but it's still like awkward walking through that Fire Giant area just because of the Mystical Mail. Luckily for him, it's not going to end up hurting him at all. In fact, the team's doing well, although that Oni Fury wave in left is now just successfully taking a tower. So your Titan's taking a little bit of a toll, and you're taking another little chunk of gold deficit. But the thing that's been remarkable to me is how many Furies we've seen, 3 in favor of JustF6. Pyromancer's kind of getting split down the middle, but I think more often than not in favor of F6. The gold lead is just a little over 1,000, 1,300, 1,400. Like, it's not enough to say anything big about.
No, not at all. It's basically tied, I'd say, at this point. What I feel like we have seen, Gore, is that this dive composition from Froi is really working as Predators takes a good bit of poke. It kind of doesn't matter that they don't have a ton of control because they're just running over JustF6 exactly like this. Predators with the Blink 2-man knockup and the follow-up from To the Skies from DineOhSaw, but Sotos is up in the air as well. He comes crashing in the back for a 3-man dunk. Mr. Stefan falls early on, but because it's Persephone, he can still contribute, but they lock down the Thor on the right-hand side, and Kerv is the one that gets the kill, but Naughty now finds himself a double. He takes down the Hachiman as well, and JustF6 starting to run over Froi. They take down DineOhSaw as well. It's a 3-for-1.
I like the call. Don't go for the chase. Bastet's still in the area, but she doesn't have her ult, so she doesn't have that damage amp. Still a dangerous game to be playing. You don't have the I'm a Monster, but Crush gonna do a little bit more damage than that pounce from Bastet. You should have Secure. This should be your buff.
That's crazy though, man. It's hard to imagine Froi starting mini fights better off than that, right? It's the 3-man knockup from Predators, followed by the To the Skies from DineOhSaw, and still it was not enough for them to win that fight. Sotos does a great job recovering with that Thor dunk. What, Gore, how did they lose that fight?
Honestly, it turns around with that dunk. I think it's looking like a complete, not disengage, but they're trying to fall away. Predators has done a lot in terms of zone. But you land, you spin, everyone's incredibly low, and Oti gets the first pick, which is the Persephone. Then all of a sudden, running back, you isolate and have split up. Predators is alone, you have Kerv on his own, and Froisan and DineOhSaw are just kind of in the middle of everybody. Locked away by a Thor wall, there was just nowhere to retreat to and no one to save them.
That's such an impressive fight there from JustF6, and think about how important that this set is. Very likely the winner of this set will just be able to move on out of the group stage, and the loser might be left wanting. And JustF6, who followed them all day long, it's been a difficult journey for them to make it even this far. They had a tough set 1, bounce back later on there in set 3, and now up against Froi with some seasoned console SCL names here on that roster. And even being down in the early game was actually a really good start to this game for Froisan. They're fighting right back into it now with this FG. They should be able to get this tier 2 and left pretty easily.
I mean, that's a few games we've seen from JustF6, and honestly from a few teams today, where they've been down early on and been able to turn it around. The fact that F6 are playing well from behind consistently honestly makes me feel like maybe they want to get behind a little early. I'm like, you know what? Like, hey, yeah, go ahead, take our farm. Do whatever you need because we play better this way. And they've been able to turn it into such a huge advantage. This Fire Giant's getting put to good use right now. That's going to be 2 tier 2s minimum that they find. Right now, I mean, they might want to sniff out a way, try to break through a Phoenix, but it's going to be difficult. It's just so hard to fight against the control they have on Froi in a small area, right? If you dive under the Phoenix, it's going to be just enough range for every single one of their abilities to matter.
It is going to be strong. Check out these mage builds real quick before this starts. The Ratatoskr for Doku so we can finish off those low HP targets. And Mr. Stefan, I think, working into the Staff of Mirrodin, not quite finished off just yet, but after the ultimate, he'll have 2 cast abilities on the back, so we'll see how that works for him, as it appears that left side Phoenix is going to be the play here for him.
Well, they're trying to find the way in, and honestly, with that Ratatoskr, again, a big old chunk of power in the pocket for Doku. I think 160 that comes off of that, and then some with the passive that comes on. He's going to be hitting hard if he gets into the right position, but it's getting into that position, I think, that matters most.
Yeah, I said
trying
earlier,
to find the pick.
He's going to be blowing up the front line. I don't think it matters who he hits at this point, Gormizer. As the Blink initiation goes in, Frenzy popped as well, and SCC has his eyes on the back line. Can't quite land on Mr. Stefan, though. Has to use the Purification Beads, but he didn't even need to land the ultimate. Mr. Stefan pops immediately, and SCC on his way out. Mr. Stefan does get him, though, with that passive. It's 1 for 1 so far, but the Phoenix is actually falling down quite low. The shots coming in from Totti are able to land. The Phoenix finally ends up falling, and JustF6 got what they came for, but can they retreat? Froi want to keep right on pushing.
Oh, that's going to be a good turnaround on a DineOhSaw. Froisan's going to be able to get Rottwen, but right now the fight's in favor of S6.
It's been a 2 for 2 so far. Kerv ends up losing his beads and his Aegis, but manages to get away from the trouble right at the back end of that fight. So JustF6, it cost them SCC, it cost them Rottwen, but they've opened up the base of Froi now by taking that left side Phoenix.
And now they're stripping away whatever the jungle they can. The Primal Fury is going to go down, which is going to make the next Pyro and Fire a little bit easier for them. They only have 16, well, now 15 seconds left on that Fire Giant buff, so they're going to go ahead and back, spend what they have. I would argue SCC, he almost gets out of there, but the biggest thing he does in that isn't even killing off Stefan. He baited out DineOhSaw, going deep with the ult, forced DineOhSaw to drop ship backwards into the base.
Right.
And then SCC was just like, all right, and teleport to Hammer, and I'm out. Luckily for Froi, they did have some chase, so they were able to shut him down ultimately. But then you lose Rottwen. Worthwhile to trade your Guardian for something that big. You get Doku having a lot of damage, a couple more kills on Oti. And Totti, again, we mentioned it earlier, but this is where he starts to shine in these games. The 30-minute mark has been hit. He's going to go big from this point on, or else he's going to start breaking a streak that he's had all day.
You're right, man. I mean, I expect this Jing Wei to be doing plenty of relevant damage, and RemagDoku. Their backline is plenty scary at this point for JustF6, and they've got plenty of setup coming from SCC and Rottwen. They've played well these last few minutes here, too. And now, around this Fire Giant, Gore, do you like Froi coming out to defend this FG? Do you think they can take this fight? They're down about 10,000 gold.
Froisan, I think, can be around in this area because he can play it safe. And then you can commit. I would choose Predators or DineOhSaw. Keep them in the area, keep everyone ready for a fight, but I don't know if you full commit into it because that's going to happen to you. DineOhSaw's already half.
He's been chunked, man. Crush just hit so hard at this point, but Predators goes right to the back line, forces the airstrike out from Totti, but meanwhile, SCC has continued his assault on the back line. He gets a double kill, taking down Mr. Stefan as well. JustF6 saying hello. The knockup comes through, and Predators manages to avoid it. He does get 1 kill, makes SCC pay for his dive, but now the Khepri starting to get chunked. The Sikkim doesn't quite land, so Predators can keep on running, leaps to get away from the Crush as well, and now Froisan wants to come to the back line, but no one is able to help Predators. Totti gets to him and shreds down the Khepri as well. Froisan in some trouble. Make it a deicide as JustF6 ready to go take the game potentially off that.
Yeah, you've already got fire minions in there. You've got 30 seconds. Make the run go as fast as you can here. DineOhSaw's going to respawn. He's not going to be your threat. You're really having to look towards Kerv's respawn maybe being the big player here.
And what we're noticing, Gormizer, is that these early leads just are not safe, as JustF6 absolutely will clean up game number 1 here in 32 minutes. Getting up by 3,000 gold or so, 4,000 gold in the early game. It's not enough, man. These teams are hanging around. They are staying sturdy in the late game. And if you make a couple mistakes, they will absolutely punish you.
And it's so far been working out for them again. I think in a lot of these sets, maybe in every set, they've won that first game. They've done the same draft. They've made it work the same way. If I'm JustF6, I'm loving the strategy. Whoever their coach is should be paid double, I guess, because it's been working out.
Yeah.
But then you have to figure out where it goes. Again, they've won 3 games. They've lost 3 games. Won 1 set, lost 1 set. This is the one that's probably the most important for them, because losing 2 in a group setting like this could very well just knock you out of there.
It really could, man. This is going to be a difficult one for them. But JustF6 now up 1-0 over Froi. We'll talk a little bit more about what happened specifically in Game 1 over at the Consortium of Knowledge.
Thank you very much, Finch. A Game 1 victory for JustF6, and it looked like it wasn't going to go their way for a little bit, but especially with Froisan on that Bastet doing as well as he did. Aggro joined by Mifflin. I mean, Miff, put yourself in Froisan's shoes. You're playing Bastet, so it's already pretty easy.
I'm already tilted.
Right, okay.
I'm tilted right now.
You're playing perfectly.
Literally
for
perfectly
sure.
tilted, yes.
Yeah, okay, obviously not perfectly, but
Perfectly.
that's a tough game to lose.
I'm in his shoes or he's in my shoes?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, well then he's playing perfectly.
Okay, perfect. But obviously it doesn't end up with a perfect result.
Yeah, story of my life.
Tough game. I mean, he only takes his last at the very end. I mean, Sotos had a big dunk at the end, killing Kerv, getting Mr. Stefan low as well. What went wrong for Froi? Froisan was off to such a great start.
Froi just lacked the cohesion. I mean, they did abuse RemagDoku in the middle lane very well off the back of Froisan's masterful play, putting myself in his shoes right now.
Naturally.
I mean, 6-1. What more do you want from... You know what? I'm getting tilted thinking about it.
Cool.
JustF6 played the maps better, despite the fact that their Scylla was literally useless for the first 25 minutes of the game. If you're in the Twitch chat, I don't need to say this, but you all know that she had, what was it, 819 damage at 24 minutes in the game. You need more, especially in the middle of the map. You need someone that can deal some actual pressure to the map, some damage, be it damage or lane control or CC. This Scylla brought nothing, and JustF6 won despite that, off the fact that anytime they did get a slight lead, if they poked anyone out, they moved in towards the Gold Furies, the Fire Portals. They just played the map so much better. Froi got the early game lead and did nothing with it, and eventually, a lead that you don't use is going to go away.
This fight right now at 25 minutes, such a good one for Oti. I mean, he eats the Discordia, or the Persephone ult rather, entirely by himself, sets up for a 3-man dunk, and Sotos had plenty of good dunks in this game. Maybe not that one in terms of accuracy, but in terms of impact, that's exactly what you want out of your Thor. We've seen teams take Sotos off this Thor. Is that the direction you're going for Froi? I mean, it's tough because your jungler did a good job as well, but maybe you want to limit what Sotos can do on the other side.
I mean, as far as bans go right now, the first game's bans were as standard as you can hope, and they've shown that they don't really respect Yamoja, so you can sacrifice one of your bans for Thor if you're really that worried about it. If I'm JustF6, I'm banning out Bastet.
Maybe, but they just beat it, so we'll see if they do just that. I'm looking at this Vamana pick. That has kind of been the story of the day for me, is how dominant Vamana has been. It's felt pretty much impossible to play around him a lot of the time. Is there a certain pick that you think teams could be abusing this Vamana with, or is it exclusively build? Is it just build anti-heal and a curse talk?
Back when Vamana was core in every single game, I'm going all the way back to Season 4, the pick was Nemesis and Ankh. Vamana uses his ultimate, Nemesis drops hers, Ankh gets dropped on him, and everyone has to turn. If he doesn't die within 5 seconds of all of that happening, you've already lost the fight. So it is a hard to institute counter pick, but it does work perfectly.
So maybe Nemesis. Maybe Nemesis.
Nemesis is nice.
Haven't seen a whole lot of her recently. She is getting a buff in the new patch, though, but not in yet,
And a skin.
obviously.
Let's go. You guys seen that skin?
It's
sick.
It's pretty sweet. Again, Yamoja open. Not going for it, though. Morgan banned away again. I was going to say I thought she was open, but she was the first ban there for JustF6. And Jing away, first overall for Froi. I've been historically fairly critical of Jingwei first pick. I think it's just we have first pick, but we don't want anything in particular, so let's just take something that can't be punished in the Jingwei. But with the crit meta, maybe she's worth picking.
Oh, man. Janus.
I don't know about all this, though,
Come
bro.
on.
Janus has not been prioritized at all today. He got banned in the second phase in Game 1, and then a top 2 here by JustF6. Why?
I mean, Janus, high mobility. I hate justifying Janus. I'm not a fan of this character. High mobility, and if you can get into their backline and use Unstable Vortex early on in the fight.
Is that my fault? I used to spam Janus against you guys. You don't like it because I played it against you. I've already decided, and you can't say anything different to change my mind. Ratatoskr and Merlin, though, for Froi. Rat, very, very good at abusing the early game, and if Froi gets off to as good of a start as he had on the Bastet, you'd think, you good, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, bro.
Okay, cool. Just making sure you didn't look good for a second there. I was talking about how Ratatoskr is a good pick. If Froi can get off to as good of a start as he did last game, Rat can snowball the game out of control pretty easily.
Yeah, Rat is such a potent pick. You can control the map so well. Rat with a lead can also look to moving into a more bruiser path. He's one of the few junglers that can really benefit from that. If you go bruiser Thor, you're really missing out on a lot. That's where Rat can come in. Bruiser Rat, you can jump in, get into their backline, be a backline mage disruption tool. Pretty decent pickup into the Janus. As long as he can get onto Janus the second he uses his first ability, the portal, Rat's going to be able to take that fight 1v1 just about any time of the week.
Okay, so riddle me this one, Mifflin. You get destroyed by Thor late game in the last game. It's open. They haven't picked the jungler. And you ban Kali instead of the Thor. That leaves me a little bit confused.
Well, you see, Kali is really good and has damage. And Thor is the big bad. And that's how Froi's thinking right now.
Okay. Do you agree with them?
No, not even a little bit. They should absolutely ban out what they know works against them.
Right.
But
He's proven that the Thor works, right?
he's
That's
proven beyond a shadow of the doubt.
Well, no Thor. Maybe they were onto something. Mercury instead this time around for JustF6. You think they close out the set here with Janus and all?
I'm going to go ahead and give it to Froi based purely off the fact that they have no reliable front line on the side of JustF6. Me and Finch have been preaching it all along that Sun Wukong is good at exactly one thing. Count them one.
Living.
It's surviving.
Yep.
And even then, there are better gods at it.
And he's annoying. Got to give him that credit too. Maybe
Super
two
annoying.
things that he's good at. Finch and Goremizer, they're good at casting. We'll give them game 2.
Thank you,
At
Aggro.
least one of us is.
No.
I'm going to put that caveat out. Finch is sick,
Thank you.
and I exist.
I'm happy to have you by my side here, Goremizer. Oti, man, I've been really proud. I've been really impressed by everything that he's done today, but I agree with the desk, man. It's going to be so hard for me to endorse this Sun Wukong pick. I consider him the you're not going to deicide us god.
Yeah.
And that's about it, and I would consider it his great strengths. Meanwhile, Predators on the King Arthur, which we saw 3v1 earlier today, and they've got Mr. Stefan on Merlin as opposed to this Janus. And I don't know, man. It kind of feels to me like Froi might be ahead just based on this draft. It's hard to know for sure, obviously, how it's going to end up playing out, but I don't know, man. It's a lot of reliance, I think, on the iSotos and Totti to make this Xbalanque and Mercury really work.
Yeah, they are going to have to take hyper carry and then redefine it, like in this game, because otherwise it's just going to fall apart. Stefan, I've seen this guy play Merlin before. It is going to be a beast already on its own. He's great at melting people down as well. Just in general, let alone in the hands of someone who's capable with it. Janus can do well in the right hands, but Doku has to show me that his hands are the right hands for this, because it's just one of those things that it can be very potent, it can do a lot of damage.
You're right.
But it can also just not exist realistically for your team. It depends on how these fights go.
Well, this looks like an early gank here for Froisan, and this is something Ratatoskr excels at. Perfect body blocks. Keep the Khepri locked in for an easy, persistent gust. You should record that gank, because that's exactly how you do that. First blood for Froi.
And that's going to help out this duo lane so much. They already have an advantage early on compared to Xbalanque and Khepri.
Yes, that's a slow
Now
start.
with that Khepri's not there to help that clear even out, pressure him out of there. Either you're going to get a kill or you're going to make sure his farm disappears. And I love this from Kerv. They also have done so well in just kind of stripping away picks that I think have been working for JustF6 all day.
Yeah, this Jing away.
And I mean, I'm trying to figure out my way. Like, it's literally all going to have to come down to play, but I'm trying to figure out in my mind how the draft from JustF6 works pre-25 minutes. Like, you get crit online for Mercury, and he's one-tapping people. That's going to be great. Same thing for Totti. But they have to go different than the builds we've seen out of them so far.
You're right. It feels as though they're almost kind of giving up this early game to a certain extent, doesn't
Which,
it?
hey, I mean, that's worked for him so far. Who cares about their early game lead? They dominate the late game.
It's a good point. They have not truly prioritized the early game here so far from JustF6, as DineOhSaw does get caught by the abduct, but nothing too wild coming from it. You did see Doug highlight this light blade start for Kerv, and I'm not a huge fan of this start. You definitely want to try getting your stacking item as soon as possible. Having that spiked gauntlet, that tier 1 of that, and finishing out the Devourer's Gauntlet as soon as possible is good, as Froisan finds the pressure into CaptainOti, and they should be able to get this blue buff invade unless a cudgel over the wall a little bit too early. CaptainOti just barely makes it back out of there and does lose his blue.
I mean, he's at that state right now where he only has one ability to keep him alive on Wukong. That's going to be his 3, his transformations to be able to come through. Bull helps you get out of close engagements Bird lets you just get out, period.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be able to use that. But once his ult comes online, I expect to see his death count plummet from where it could be. The potential to kill him will drop, but it'll all come down from pressure. I mean, a lot of the games that JustF6 have been winning have been off of Odi's pressure and what he's been able to do to the backline.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
put him
not
on
going to
Sun
happen.
Wukong.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not going to happen too much. I mean, his damage can be irritating, and if he uses his 72 transformations instead to try and find a stun onto Kerv or Stefan and set up the kill, there's potential.
Sotos, though, has a really good passing that he's taking. Finds one with the special delivery and Kerv. Ends up using the beats too late. Abduct ends up landing on DineOhSaw as well. This could be a double kill in the left lane for Sotos. What an answer back from this Mercury and a well-timed gank.
You need your Mercury to be a huge hyper carry for your team. Get him ahead as fast as possible. Both of those kills going his way. And he is wasting no time on this one. That's going to be a rage.
Yeah, it is.
Just second item off the bat. Doesn't care about power. He's going in on it. And I'm kind of living for it.
And Mercury's not traditionally thought of as a great ganker without Sonic Boom. And normally the ultimate's pretty important for him, but he takes really patient pathing through that Gold Fury pit to come all the way underneath and catch DineOhSaw and Kerv off guard. And then Rottwen does a great job backing him up. A good abduct ends up landing on DineOhSaw. And really, there was no way out for Froi on that one. They end up losing 2 over and left, gifting those kills over to Mercury. That is going to help out a lot. We were worried about the early game. Well, it looks a lot better when your Mercury starts out 2-0.
Yeah, it's going to need a lot more of that is what I should say. It's going to be good for them now, but can they hold on to it, or is it going to slip away? They're still about 1,000 gold behind, which again, can disappear in the blink of an eye, but it's still very important if you're Froi, because you've planted the seed that you can now grow into a flourishing plant, which is a gold lead and potentially a win off of something that small.
Been watching too much Persephone, Gormizer, as the ultimate comes out from DineOhSaw. Predators is quite low, but they managed to push JustF6 out all the same. CaptainOti, that was still nearby. Tiger Stun locked Predators down for a second, but they can't get the CC chain going through space and time. A bit off the mark if it was for damage, and they are not able to punish Predators. He makes it back out of there.
I mean, Predators is doing the thing that you expect, which is being able to stay alive, although he's not doing the other aspect of King Arthur, which is bullying the lane. It's kind of weird to see Wukong with a lead over him.
I would say so. He's got that Glad Shield online now,
Froisan.
though, so maybe this is the time for him to get active. Froisan's going to have to use that ultimate defensively in order to make it out of there as he gets caught in the enemy jungle. But I'm with you. I'm a bit surprised to see that the King Arthur has been a bit behind, but perhaps we'll see that kind of snap back into the King Arthur's favor over these next few levels.
Especially now that Oti doesn't have access to a blue buff, stripped away from that last one, and I don't expect Predators is going to let his own get taken away, but the pings have been coming out, and Sotos is making a rotation over. They might. Honestly, I just say go for it. Go take the buff. No, the teleport comes through, which is enough to ward them away. So, unfortunately for Oti, I think that Glad Shield plus this blue buff might actually end up being the demise of the control he's had in lane.
It might be. King Arthur, before he has that Glad Shield kind of online for a minute, I think he just got it online towards the tail end of that last fight. He's not quite as impactful in lane, so it might make some sense that the Wukong was able to come out on top. But Wukong is not too bad in lane. He was able to clear with the cudgel. He's not going to really bully a whole lot, but he'll be able to kind of get his, so to speak. He'll be able to get his farm usually pretty consistently.
I'm excited to see where Froisan goes more than anything, because we've talked about Ratatoskr a few times today. Very early game oriented. Although we've seen it transition pretty well into late game in a lot of these hands because of the lead they cultivate. But he got that one really good gank, and now we're just watching him because I actually am excited to see where he goes, but he hasn't done too much. He's been kind of quiet since that first gank.
Yeah, it looks like he might be working on a Transcendence for a second item as a big sort of power bank and to get it stacked early. And you won't hear any complaints from me. 2-man root from Rottwen, not bad to slow down the aggression from Froi. Red buff is about to spawn. Dash in, finds the sun, but Rottwen makes it out with the portal. And that is something only Janus can do. A good play from RemagDoku. But that's going to leave their red buff undefended. Froi should be able to strip that one away relatively easily, make it right on out of there.
And that's kind of the biggest thing I'm seeing. Doku being able to save his teammate is huge, but that's one of the big misnomers, I guess, when it comes down to Janus. He can do a lot of damage, but a lot of what he can do is keep you or your team alive. Yeah, there's potential for dropships. There's a lot of potential for him, but between him and Oti, there's a lot of retreat out of there as well. And I'm wondering if it's going to be like, which Janus are we going to get? Are we going to get defensive, protective Janus? Or are we going to get, I'm going in to see what I can do and try and kill you off Janus?
This is something JustF6 has done a lot, but typically when they start up these early Gold Furies, they've had the Kukulkan at their disposal, or a Scylla, or some other mage with a ton of really good confirm. I don't know that Janus fits that same build. This time when they start up the Gold Fury and Froi sniff it out, Froisan comes over, they have to drop the objective and give up on it.
I think that's going to honestly hurt them. The biggest amount of control they had last game was who cared about the early game lead. We're getting every objective that matters.
Right.
Now if you're not able to confirm the objectives, what do you have going for you? Granted, through space and time as well as the Unstable Vortex can do a lot of damage and potentially close it out.
Yeah,
but it's not going to melt you faster than a Merlin.
This is about how this matchup is supposed to go, by the way, over here in solo land. Just about everybody up against King Arthur. This is the kind of thing that happens. The ultimate forced out defensively from CaptainOti, and so Predators heads right towards the blue buff to be there for the invade, but he's alone. It's going to be a 2v1 battle for him for now. Froi and the rest of the squad know that there's two members over here in right, and that Predators is winning the battle, takes down SCC, and they've got the numbers advantage in left that forces the ultimate defensively out from RemagDoku, so they're going to head right to the Gold Fury. I love this sequence from Froi off of Predators' pressure.
And Predators, he's still giving the pressure. They're going to be able to get this Gold Fury, and Rottwen going to get poked out a little bit. Oti, you're not safe, man. He still wants to go. Predators will dive a tier 2 more often than not.
Yeah, he absolutely will. He does end up taking quite a bit of poke for it. A good tiger stun from Oti underneath the tier 1 or tier 2 tower rather. But now add in a red buff invade here for Froi on top of being able to find that Gold Fury and the pick on the SCC that Predators got in the 2v1. And you can tell just from this chart how that kind of shot them up another 1,000 gold or so in terms of this lead. Froi now starting to play pretty well here around their early game draft.
Again, cultivation is the biggest thing. It's just build yourself a small lead, see what you can do with it. Where is it going to give you that advantage? And yeah, there was a 2 big kill swing for JustF6 early on in this game, but Mercury's been real silent since then. How is his rage online now so he can start stacking that up? And it's the first rage of the game, but they don't have the control that they want to. They're losing over in solo lane now. Even Wukong trying to get deep. I don't think he's in a safe position. They need this Pyromancer to help try and stabilize.
That's really what it is trying to even up a bit this fight. CaptainOti is in some trouble. Still does not have the Somersault Cloud available. He gets taken to the sky. Froisan has his ultimate too, catches them out, gets the knock-up, and baits out the ultimate from Rottwen. He was being patient there to not commit into that revive potentially happening. But now CaptainOti might be in some trouble here in right. They defend the Pyromancer successfully. The stun lands, and Froi takes the objective.
Honestly, in that moment, Froi just go, hey, you know what? Thanks for like making it easy for us, right? It's kind of like when you're opening a jar for someone and you can't get it open yourself, you hand it back and they pop the lid off like it's nothing. Like, I loosened it for you. That's what that Pyromancer was. It's just loosen it up from JustF6. And Finch, I'm looking at it. This game, the more it goes on, the better it is for them if they can just prolong it. And as much as I don't want to see another 45+ minute game, I'm sure if they can make it there, that's actually their best bet. That gives you a full build for the Xbalanque and for SCC. As long as they play it appropriately from that point on, they can win the game. The problem is you have to make it that far in the game. And right now, Froisan, Stefan, and kervv are not letting... Well, actually, Predators is more susceptible to that than anything. They're just not letting you get that lead or that prolongation.
There's more aggression, though, happening over near the red buff here, Gormizer. Froi are looking for yet another invade. Wall stun ends up landing on SCC. DineOhSaw drops the ultimate as well. Forces the ultimate defensively out from RemagDoku. And as you noticed earlier on, this team is pretty good at running away. But I'm wondering now if they're going to end up spending too much time doing that this game. They're now down about 4,500 gold. Make that 5,000 when you add in this tier 1.
Yeah, it's good from Froi, honestly. And that's about all it can go. It just... From JustF6, the problem really isn't their playstyle, because they're playing the gods exactly as the gods are intended. They're just not a good draft. I mean, from the top to bottom, it's just not a draft that makes me think winning. Whereas, well, Terra, guess what she does? Guess what everyone does? SCC is the one you need to get online, and he's now got 2 deaths. He hasn't accomplished much since that early gank.
You're right, man. That early gank was really nice from him, but if you look at it, I mean, JustF6 haven't done anything since then. Froisan posturing like he was going to aggress in, but my man was all alone. There was no way he was going in there, so he ends up falling back. And now Froi have leveraged this Ratatoskr in the early game, right? This King Arthur in solo lane with all of his pressure. And I think DineOhSaw has played really well, too, for what it's worth.
Yes.
They have turned that pressure now into about a 5,000 or so gold lead in their favor. And JustF6, as you said, are kind of treading water, trying to make their way throughout this early game into the point where they've got a lot of crit online for SCC and for Totti, and RemagDoku's damage is there, too, and they can all be protected by this Khepri. I just don't know if they're going to make it.
See, what I like is, you know, SCC recognizes where the crit needs to be, but I feel like he could use one power item in there somewhere.
Sure.
I also wouldn't mind seeing an Erendite at some point because I love the way it synergizes along with a Mercury, but right now he's going full on in for the crit, and I don't hate it. I don't know if I like it. I think it's just, again, just push it back one item and maybe you feel his impact right now a lot more. That Rage doesn't even have a single stack on there, and you can kind of see, getting that passive up as you see it go up. But I mean, 200, not necessarily batting where you want him to this early on. And that's kind of the counter. Froisan on the other side, I mean, with this Transcendence, now with the Hydra's Lament, he's going to be feeling it. He's going to be able to get aggressive, keep doing what he's doing, and then some in the jungle of JustF6.
Yeah, particularly onto these squishies. He's going to be doing a ton of damage. He doesn't have really any pen at this point to try and speak up. Sonic Boom does find Predators, but I think Predators laughs that one off. Not really going to get much more out of that, as it's really just to try and stall his aggression. But I think it gives you an idea that JustF6 are not planning to try and be aggressive really anytime soon. But they got to be careful. This Fury's about to spawn, and Froi are already in position to take it the second that it does.
And they have Kerv, who, by the way, has completely just stolen Totti's build from last game. And I mean, hey, it's the build that works on Jing right now, so I'm not going to complain about it. Again, Aussie early on maybe isn't going to help you in the trades, but it's going to help you in the team fights, and that's where Kerv has been excelling. DineOhSaw's in the area, and they're going to be going in.
JustF6 considered starting up the Fury, but immediately drop it once DineOhSaw gets aggressive.
Good body blocks.
And Rottwen is in trouble. He drops the Scarab Blessing on himself, but he's just going to land right back in front of everyone else. I do not love that ultimate usage there from Rottwen. Might have been better off just holding it. And now it's time for the Primal Fury to start up here for Froi. They're burning it quite quickly, and I don't know if anyone from JustF6 are even going to try and come in. This Primal Fury has been earned by the order side.
I mean, honestly, the only person who could try to do anything is maybe Doku. I guess SCC could go in for, well, something big if he was on that side of the map, but Doku's the only one who can impact it from that far away. And I think this is the difference. Last game, Froi get a pretty big early game lead, and it gets taken away by JustF6. This is what happens when it never gets taken away. They just start to run away with it. It's 15 minutes in, but I mean, this feels like it could be over any time now. I mean, towers are still falling slowly, but Fire Giant control, I give over to Froi right now. It's going to need something big and maybe nothing short of a miracle to keep them afloat with it, because I just haven't seen enough out of the mid and jungle to feel impact out of them.
You're right. I mean, 0-0-0 for RemagDoku. He has not done a whole lot here this game. Does have a decent amount of player damage. He's right there with everyone else, but and he's made some nice saves there too. So I mean, I don't want to give RemagDoku too hard of a time really at all. I think it's sort of, I think you identified it already, right? I don't think that this is a draft that's meant to frag in the first 15 minutes of the game, right? That's just not what this composition's really going to be doing, and Froi has taken advantage of that. They're now looking at the Pyromancer, and JustF6 are not in position to defend this one. In fact, Froi get this objective for free as well, as Froisan and Predators have done a great job making space all game.
And that kind of zone is going to need to be broken if you're JustF6 here. The biggest strengths they have, Chrono Spend it online once the damage is there for Doku. Again, late game, I'm looking at him. You could potentially, with the right zone, get 2, 3, 4 unstable vortexes off in a fight, and that's a lot of damage if you can connect it properly. SCC, if he can get to the backline, which his ult enables him to relatively easily, that's a 2-tap onto Stefan or Kerv, which are going to be your bigger targets. And same thing for Totti in terms of melting people. But he's just now, in terms of Totti, looking to get his crit online. SCC, I believe, going for a Deathbringer, still hasn't been able to get that because of how expensive it is. Just now buys it off. And you're losing so much in the meantime. I mean, you've got to be in a comebackable position when you get those items online later. And with 2 Spectral Armors, count them, on that side now for Froi.
Yeah.
Those crits from that Mercury aren't looking too good.
And this is kind of, I think, another reason why you might be right about maybe not doubling down the Deathbringer there so early, right? Because it always leaves the chance to maybe even pivot out of going entirely crit. Rage is good enough where you can just build that by itself, really, if you want to.
Yeah.
Fire Giant started, but this is more of a bait. They've got CaptainOti in a bad spot. He barely makes it to the sky with that somersault cloud that is now healing up, but they did cover the option indeed. Scarab's blessing too. A lot committed just to keep the Sun Wukong alive on the right-hand side, though there was a lot committed for the kill.
And hey, JustF6 have proven the same thing we've said all game, but I think it's worth saying again, they keep themselves alive really well, and that's about it. I mean, they need a little bit more. Portal keeps you alive, although this time you don't have much room to run away. Froisan's still sniffing him out, trying to figure it out, but that ult's just big.
Fire Giant, though, is incredibly low now for Froi, and I don't think JustF6 are going to be able to make it in there in time. They forced out RemagDoku. SCC is all the way over in left, and the other three just couldn't make it in. That is a pre-19-minute Fire Giant secured now by Froi, and their pressure has just been relentless this game. Look at these charts. It's just a steady, slow and steady climb right on up, and JustF6 have not been able to slow it down at all. And there's still 3 Tier 2 towers up for Froi to go grab on the map. That gold lead about to get even worse.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to spiral out of control. Level advantage is heavily in their favor to the point where normally, like, you can look at 20 minutes and start to say, yeah, maybe ignore the experience, but you've got 3 in the jungle, 2 in the solo, 2 in mid, and 1 over there for your hunters. And they're perfectly happy with that. Get them some more items online, they're going to be able to close it out pretty comfortably. SCC is now starting up that Gem of Fate.
You wanted the Erendite.
Yeah, the Erendite. So I'm excited to see it, but again, I just don't know if it maybe is going to come out too late for him.
At this point, it really might be. It's not a cheap item to pick up, so SCC is potentially going to be on this Gem of Fate for a while, and it's just 900 gold for 10 CDR. It's certainly not great as it is. They grab CaptainOti and force the Somersault Cloud defensively again. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but that's what we're going to see Sun Wukong doing almost all game, man. It's just not a tremendous amount of value coming out from him. They've got 2 players sitting on the 0-0, and 0 just have not really had much impact. I mean, to be fair, there's only been 6 kills this game, but you'd want a bit more as Froi get the Tier 2 and are now threatening the right side Phoenix.
I think the best way to look at it is between the Janus and the Wukong, they have had no positive impact, but they've also had no negative impact.
Right.
There's no deaths that come on with the no kills, right? So, I mean, I guess there's something to be said about it. They keep themselves impactful in the sense that they are still around and alive, but it's not doing much to deter Froi right now. They find 2 Tier 2s. This third one might as well be gone. Well, no, they're going to ignore it because the Gold Fury is going to be a little bit easier. But as long as they have Fire Giant, that third one might as well be gone. The only difference it's going to make is, well, exactly what they have right now, a substantial gold lead, 12,000 in their favor. I mean, if I am Kerv, this is looking like the next step towards a Deathbringer. If I'm Stefan, he's looking to go into potentially a Staff of Muradin, which is going to give him a lot more casts off of that stance switch. It's just a dangerous game to be playing if you're JustF6 because you're falling behind so heavily.
Heartseeker just finished for Froisan there too. That is scary. Adds a ton of additional power to this Ratatoskr and a ton of kill potential for him as well. The Void Shield for Predators does a good job adding some extra kill potential and reducing the damage that's going to be coming out on the side of JustF6. So these are some big power spike items they finished pretty much across the board. I think DineOhSaw got a full Spirit Robe off this back as well. He's going to be way, way harder to kill after picking this item up. So this last Tier 2 tower, as you just got through mentioning, Gore, that's going to come down here now too, extending them up to about 13,000 gold in the lead. And they've got another minute with which to consider making a Phoenix push here as well.
That gold lead just keeps on climbing. They've been winning team fights. There's no reason not to go in here, and Froisan seems to have the same idea.
Gonna take to the sky, wants to try and zone this Xbalanque out of the fight because he has to worry potentially about getting hit. Forces the Darkest of Nights out from him early. Left side Phoenix is still healthy, but Oti has gone to the backline already. Already had to use the Somersault Cloud. That is the clone up in the front line getting shredded. Rottwen has to ult himself again. That is just not what you're drafting the Khepri for. And now the left side Phoenix has been burned. What a clean Phoenix siege from Froi, and they might even get Oti, who barely makes it out.
Again, it's not often. I think I said this yesterday when we saw it, that you get to see a Titan die with 10, like all 10 gods alive in the game, but it's not often you get to see a Phoenix die with all 10 gods alive in the game. It's just good control coming down. Merc finally going in for it all, looking for something, but SCC is just running away.
Really quick beads from Kerv that allowed him to avoid getting hit by him, and he was crippled as well. That delayed the portal, gave time for the squad to show up and catch him the second they walked through. The 5th kill of the game, and one for DineOhSaw too to get him on the board as they take down the left Phoenix and now are threatening mid.
Man, and Froisan's just waiting for a pick. They have vision on him because of those wards, but he's just been sitting back there patiently, still sitting back there patiently, and it's going to be dangerous for your Janus as well as your Xbalanque. Otherwise, they're going to get taken down.
You did see the Fire Giant buff has fallen off from Froi, but that has not deterred them at all. They nearly get the kill on RemagDoku as they now threaten the mid Phoenix. They've got some low health bars, but they were able to grab the mid Phoenix now too. They take down CaptainOti on the Sun Wukong, and now it's the full retreat. This has been a really clean game from Froi so far. I know there's only been 8 kills in 23 minutes, but I think you have to have an appreciation for how systematically they're dismantling JustF6.
I mean, they have a checklist and they just went off one by one. They were like, all right, okay, so we need to get Fire Giant? Right, okay, good. Let's go ahead and move forward. We have a couple of tier 2s to take, guys. Yeah, let's go ahead and grab those. Oh, that Gold Fury? Okay, yeah, we'll add that one. It wasn't on the list originally, but since it's there, we might as well go ahead and do it now.
That's near the cash register. Like you see some gum or something up near the front. Yeah.
And so they take everything they need. Pyromancer's up, and well, there's no one from JustF6 in the neighborhood for that, so that should be an easy capture. And then pivot onto the Fire Giant for Froi. I mean, you're too busy having to defend these lanes, too busy trying to figure out what items to buy to keep yourself alive in this to do anything if you're JustF6.
Yeah, this has been the in-game equivalent of curling up into a ball. I mean, yeah, they prevented the death blow from coming, but it's just been a bunch of really small body blows, and now I don't know that JustF6 can really defend. I mean, they're down 20,000 gold here at this point. They have to give up the Fire Giant entirely, and Froi can start barreling down the middle lane. They'll keep those minions pushed up in middle. The ones over in left were pushed out by RemagDoku, but they've got 4 members threatening the right side. Phoenix Predators goes right onto the back line, and Kerv all the while is just pumping into shots onto the actual Phoenix. Froisan is up in the air as well. He doesn't find anyone with a knock-up, but heads towards SCC in the back line and keeps him from engaging. Now the right side Phoenix already at half, even below that down to a quarter, and Froi very nearly grabbed it even without a fight.
I mean, they're looking to just be able to poke it out, although they're low, and that's going to be SCC going into the back line. Stefan's gone.
They end up getting the kill on the Mr. Stefan. That makes it a 1-for-0, but that's now all 3 Phoenixes down. Minions are starting to attack the Titan at this point, too. Someone's got to get back and make sure the Titan ends up remaining healthy. Froi may have lost a couple members here, but I mean, I think they got just about everything they wanted off the push. The Titan fell to half just from minions.
That's clean for them.
Gotta keep running, though.
You get Jing back. You have now Froisan and Kerv full health, ready to go in. And maybe they don't immediately dive, right? You don't just go into the Titan room, no problem, but 3 waves of fire minions left is about to respawn, so they know where they want to put their focus onto it. That's right around here where this Primal Fury is. Like, the map's working for Froi right now, and it's just making it a lot cleaner of an engagement for them. Luckily, because they're still waiting 10 seconds for Mr. Stefan, it's going to open up a conversation for JustF6 to try and stay afloat, but I mean, 3 Phoenixes down is nigh impossible to fight back from. We've seen some teams do it, but man, you have 4 towers, 3 Phoenixes, and a couple of Furies and Fire Giants that have been playing against you here. Yes. You're going to need them, again, a lot if you're JustF6.
It is, in a lot of cases, a death sentence from this point. Gore, to give you some context here, remember how this game started? SCC got that double kill over in left, right?
Oh yeah, that happened
we talked
once.
about,
I forgot about that.
That was nice, accelerating the early game. My man's 2-0-0. It's been 0-3-1 since then. Only 2 kills for the team since then. Really nothing has gone right since then for JustF6. It has been the Froi show, I would argue, since 2.5 minutes into this game. From that point on, it has been dominated by the Order side team, and really JustF6 have had almost nothing to say. I
think, honestly, you can look at the level of the ganks, too. Like, Froisan's, like, first gank, like, beautiful body blocks, a lot of control. It was textbook. And that's just been this game from them. Has been textbook. Everything that they played has been right to the note. And like you said, not a lot of kills. In fact, a lot of the people on Froi are just 1-1. But they've been so objective-oriented. They've won so many of these little fights that they're just in good positions for everything. The Titan is getting more fire minions on the way. Phoenixes are falling still. This is what you want from Froi.
They're going to need something big if they're going to grab this. A big sonic boom. I'm thinking Gormizer. Rottwen's got to res someone that isn't him, perhaps in this next fight as well, to try and see if they can keep him alive. The problem is they've been taking this Khepri out of the equation early on. They are going to need something dramatic to change that has not worked for them up until now. In goes CaptainOti, but he takes a ton of damage. There's the sonic boom that they need, but it only really finds one target. The ultimate from DineOhSaw comes out as the great equalizer, and already JustF6 are on the defensive. CaptainOti comes down, and CaptainOti goes down. He vanishes the second that he drops from the cloud. Left side Phoenix now under siege, and that one's going going to fall as well. No Phoenixes to defend the base of JustF6. Froi should be able to barrel on it.
Yeah, Froisan's looking for blood still. They're going to be able to back up if you're JustF6 into your fountain, heal up. They're backing away a little bit, but this is more to push the minions forward. They want some of those backdoor protections out of there, and they have a fire minion wave coming down the right. They have their fire minion wave, or well, right now a regular minion wave, then a fire minion wave coming down mid. They're looking to just try and coast into this Titan room and get rid of the last 50% of health.
Yeah, Froi's kind of just vibing right now. They're like, all right, guys, now let's go on in and take the Titan. It's already down below half health. Yeah, I mean, there was just no way JustF6 were going to defend from that one. 28 minutes on the clock, and that was clinical, surgical for Froi. I mean,
top to bottom.
I might make the argument the game was lost at picks and bans.
Yeah, I was actually going to say I don't like saying that often because I like to think everyone's available. I just think that their draft, if you take any of those gods, maybe not Wukong, any of those gods, though, and put them on another team with some power, they can work. We've seen actually Stefan run this the Janus with success in the past in the last couple of weeks. So it still exists. I just think they put too much on one side that couldn't do enough, and they lost it early, and then it was just a slow roll for Froi to win.
I do say, though, sometimes this is the kind of loss that you can write off. They were really never in this game at all.
Yeah.
Game number 3 going to be happening right after the desk breaks it down.
Thank you, Finch and Gore. The Ratatoskr did exactly what we expected. Snowball the early game and keep JustF6 out of that contest. Aggro joined by Mifflin here on the desk. I mean, Miff, that's what Rat's supposed to do, right? Is just get that early lead and put so much pressure on the map that you really can't play anything aggressively.
Not only did he put pressure on the map, but he focused that pressure towards the center of the map. And from the side of JustF6, they've got RemagDoku on his signature god playstyle. Zero pressure in the middle lane, picking that Janus. Ratatoskr abused it. And not only did he abused it well. They didn't find too many kills in the early off the back of the Rat pressure. However, they did find every single objective that they could possibly want ever. Let me review my notes here. Roughly 15 minutes into the game, there were only 6 kills, but Froi was up 6,000 gold.
Yeah, it's just objective pressure, and this level 2 duo lane gank, that's the Rat special right there. These are basically impossible to get away from. He just has more movement speed than you, and frankly, hits harder the majority of the time. I mean, it's a tough balance to strike as a team where you don't want to, you want to give things up because you know you aren't strong enough yet in order to contest objectives. You think, okay, you know, we just give this one up, we contest the next one. The next one comes around, okay, well, we can't really contest this one, but next one for sure. But eventually, you have to contest something, and it just felt like it was too long for JustF6.
JustF6 were waiting for the late game that never would come. Drafting for the late game is never bad unless you draft every single one of your gods for the late game, and it looks like that's what JustF6 did. If
Sounds
you
like
want to
it's
have
sometimes
the
bad.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know what? You're right. It is sometimes bad. Just then it was bad. If you want to draft for the late, pick some bridge gods that can carry you through the early. Like, when I was playing for Eager, we would pick Sol and Kronos every single game, both incredibly late-game gods.
Literally every game.
And you know what I would pick?
What would you pick?
I would pick
Ratatoskr.
Robin and Ratatoskr.
Yep,
and why is that? Because they carry the early.
That is true.
And we get those guys to the late game. Instead, they had a late-game jungler, they had a late-game ADC, they had a late-game middle laner. Who's going to get you there? It's not the Khepri. He's just going to keep one guy alive, and barely then.
It's going to be hard for him. Well, no Ratatoskr this time around. JustF6 have had enough
That's
of
smart.
that early game. Looks like Umoja might make it through here with these picks and bans, but it went through in game 1 of this set and wasn't
two,
picked
didn't
or banned. No, I believe it was banned in game number 2, but it is hour a lot on the broadcast, so I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. Pick number 1 is going to be the Morrigan. I was going to say we're missing something here with this Rat ban and Jingwei ban. Morrigan, certainly very, very strong. I think she's a premier mid lane mage right now.
I mean, she's the magical Loki in that she can deal immense damage in her base form and then immediately switch into another one to just bring the utility that you need. Hunbat's ult, real good. Morgan's got that too, bud. Good luck. Persephone, on the other hand, that poke from the long range is actually a very decent pickup into Morgan. Able to keep her back a little bit. If you can poke her out before she can engage onto you. At half health, she's never really going to want to start a fight. Jing Shen, though, that's a high-pressure support.
Yeah, that's one that gives a lot of kill pressure as well, which is very important oftentimes in that support role. Ho Yi picked up pretty early on with Jingwei off the table. I guess JustF6 wanted to grab something for their hunter pretty early on. But again, no Thor pickup before the second ban phase, and this time, Froi right on the money with that Thor ban.
I mean, that's a smart... We said they should have done it last time. They finally did it this time, but JustF6 show that they don't really care about the Thor anymore. They got the one win. They want to prove that they have large god pools, I guess. What's really frustrating me looking at the screen right now is the lack of Umoja on it.
Yes.
No bans, no picks. these guys must not watch the broadcast or know the meta.
We could ban it here, right? Because we could just ban it, right? Okay, that's
a gap.
Yeah, that's not Yemoja.
Yeah, that's the frustration factor I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe this. I mean, Yemoja's not the easiest god to execute in the early game. Late game, you spam 2 and you're chilling. But early game to get that max effectiveness, we've seen ineffective Yemoja games. If your support's uncomfortable with it, I guess you have to stay away from it. That makes sense to some degree. As Achilles and Erlang Shen round out the draft here for JustF6.
Hey, we found some pressure.
That's a good amount of pressure between Achilles and Erlang Shen. Terra on the other side. That's another. That is probably Morrigan's best transformation. Is Terra. You get into the teeth of the enemy team, you transform, Terra ult all of them. Now you're too tanky to kill. I like what JustF6 has in this draft.
JustF6 has a very potent draft here, as well as finally they have that late game character in the Morgan, but they have these bridge gods in Achilles and Erlang Shen to get them there. Hu Yi, a hunter, always going to be better in the late game. However, he can fight at any point after he gets his ultimate. Jing Shen as well, going to be so much pressure in the middle.
Final game of the day. Who is going to the Smite Challenger Circuit? JustF6 versus Froi. Finch, let us know.
This is such an important game here, Aggro. Thank you on the desk for breaking it down alongside Mifflin. It's Finch and Gormizer to try and close this day out as Froi and JustF6 have done a lot of battling today, Gormizer.
Yes.
It is a lot of Smite these guys have been playing for it to all come up for nothing. But unfortunately for one of these teams, that's about to happen. So
it's just so weird to think that the only clean set we've seen was Poppy's taking it over Freshly Forged.
That's a great point.
Which most people wouldn't have assumed anyway. Like,
Not me.
If you had told me out of the 4 sets we've seen today, one was going to be a 2-0, I would have assumed literally any of the other 3.
I think I would have picked that
even
set,
for JustF6.
But I would have picked Freshly Forged.
Yeah,
you know
true.
I mean? I don't know, man. That was such a surprise, but it just goes to show how difficult these group stages are.
Yeah.
You can't take any of these matches for granted whatsoever, and that's why it's been such a slugfest here, man. All these teams understand how important it is. They're all hungry, and they all want to try and make it. But Current is in some trouble. Dive bomb and first blood for Totti over here in the left-hand side, getting JustF6 on the board first.
And you know what? That's what I've been missing from Totti. This entire time, he's been really great from the 25 to 30-minute plus mark.
Right.
But he wasn't really there for the 0 to 25-minute mark. Get him in there, get him online, get aggressive in this lane and find some control.
Hey, you think JustF6 are tired of spending 28 minutes doing nothing, by the way?
Yeah.
These guys came back in, and they were ready to play here in game number 3. And I do think the picks and bans just got away from them a bit in that second game,
Yes.
right? Where they suddenly ended up with nothing to kind of carry them to the early game. RemagDoku not quite able to find the stun. That's a good pin. But the CDs just weren't there from RemagDoku. Almost gets the kill to Mr. Stefan, but he makes it out of there. But I think these guys are a bit frustrated with the way Game 2 went, and they've drafted now to give themselves some much better tools to fight at multiple stages of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get aggressive, you have Morgan on your team now. That alone is going to be enough to swing things in your favor.
That's a huge
Shin,
pick.
I think a lot of people, it flutters between overvalued and maybe just, you know, appropriately valued, which is he's good. Maybe not #1 pick ban, but he's definitely going to be something that is impactful in this game.
Yeah.
And we saw what they were able to do. A few teams have been able to do with it, specifically Draco for the Poppies earlier, and how much it was able to contribute to it. But Predators is back on this King Arthur, which has been very kind to Froi. And I expect if, you know, this Achilles doesn't get off on the right foot, once that Glad Shield comes online, we're going to see Predators doing Predators things, which is just chasing him down every step of the way.
Aggression onto the purple buff here from JustF6. They get caught by DineOhSaw, dive bomb from Totti. He's on his way out of here. Rottwen could be in trouble, but DineOhSaw blinks in and is trying to see if he can catch Totti down. Able to find the root and the double dash through him as well. Now in comes the Heavenly Banner, but Iajutsu was just out of range. Totti is in a whole world of trouble, but he got a second dive bomb back up and he's out of there. JustF6 managed to narrowly escape.
And he's in a perfect position. Yeah, they might lose the purple buff because of an invade, but he stays alive and he manages to get the next wave still online for him.
Another light blade start.
Honestly, still worthwhile, but yeah, it's, I mean, hey.
I don't love it.
It's the Totti special at this point. I'm going to accept it. I like the idea of getting your Devo's Gauntlets or maybe just a Bludge Fort. Like, if you just want power early on, that's going to be good. Or sustainability early on, they're both going to be good for you. The Aussie, though, I guess contributes enough, again, for trading in terms of, hey, I'm low, now I'm not.
well, he's finally playing a playstyle where I understand the Aussie rush, actually, right? He's on Ho Yi, who actually does box very, very well. Once he's able to get that Mark of the Golden Crow online, it is hard to beat him in a 1v1 if you're the one that he's marked. And when he has that Aussie, he'll have some extra flat pen early on. The actual passive on it will be really strong as well. This is a situation where I actually really do not mind the Aussie rush.
And this actually might be the first time where I want to see him fight curve more often, too, because I think, as you have pointed out just perfectly, he'll win these trades more often than not, as long as he doesn't lose any big gank fights or anything like that come over here. He already has a slight lead over curve in terms of experience, even though they lost that purple buff. I want to see him push it to the limit. I want to see this go as far as he can. He has skipped over. Originally, I think it's been Aussie into the boots. Now he's just gone for the boots, which is going to help him out more.
I mean, that's just more right, so I'm not going to be mad at him for a nice stun. Ends up landing on the Froisan. Fear no evil to give the monkey a taste of his own medicine, and another kill for JustF6 and strip away the speed buff for good measure.
I give him full applause for that one. That's Doku being on point, knowing exactly what he wanted when he wanted it. And shout-outs to Mifflin, because that's exactly what he pointed out at the very beginning. That Hoodbats gets locked in, and he said, yeah, Fear No Evil's cool. Guess who also has that? And while JustF6 showcasing that they know when to use it as well.
Looks like Froi were able to come in and defend the two smalls, but the actual big blue buff itself gets snatched up by JustF6. So a successful invade. Not only was that play from RemagDoku really well executed, but where were they on the map, Gore? They were up near the Phoenix, past the speed buff, aggressing into Froisan. Yeah, just vibing, hanging out.
Look, they've been looking, they've been reading Predator's playbook, and they were like, you know what, this guy, he might know a thing or two about a thing or two.
Froisan, using his own Fear No Evil, does force the beads out from Totti, but they're not going to be able to actually find the kill. But it should be another purple buff invade here for Froi on the back of that aggression. Not quite as successful as when RemagDoku did that, but still I think it ends up working for Froisan that he gets the beads from Totti.
I also like the shot. Like, I like what Totti does there, which is I'm going to hang back, but a good ricochet, which would have been on point about 2 seconds earlier, could have been big. But you force the beads, you're showcasing that you're not out of this. But Froisan, this is the first game we've seen him in that hasn't started off his way, right? Hasn't been finding early game pressure, hasn't been finding an early gank that turned into a kill. And on the other side, instead, Doku has taken your form and actually done what Hoodbats wants to do for Froi, just a little bit better, but for JustF6.
Wow, and Oti is winning this matchup into the King Arthur. Now, it's still early days. King Arthur doesn't have the boots yet. He benefits a lot from finishing those off. But Oti's had a really strong performance when he's not on Sun Wukong here today. So, I mean, I'm really expecting, hey, maybe this lane keeps going this way.
Yeah, honestly, with the way it feels right now, if you get JustF6 a good draft every game, they're a solid team.
Wait, hold up, Doku. This is a little bit too much. Yeah, he's backing up now. He realizes he can't keep diving. Predators is absolutely going to fall. Oti gets the execute in the 2v1 in solo, but they do have SCC locked down. He gets one nice heal to stay alive, but there were too many members there. They bit off a bit more than they could chew with that dive, and they do get punished.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's kind of straight out of Predator's playbook, so they're doing it exactly right, which is get aggressive, get a kill, then get aggressive, lose everything. But you're still in position to try and get this blue buff. You're still in position to force a fight out of him.
Okay, he's out.
And maybe knock up a little bit more of Froisan here. You can still go in for the fight. It's a dangerous game to be playing, but you have the potential here.
Froisan still has Fear No Evil. That's why they're taking this fight. Finally drops it, and it does end up centering CaptainOti, but an even better Fear No Evil for RemagDoku, who makes the rotation over on the Morgan. Now Predators is in some trouble. He just took a spill, can't afford a second. Does eventually make it out of there, but Froisan is having a rough go of it here in the early game. The exact opposite of the way it went on Rat.
Yeah, and uncomfortable for him at this point as well. I mean, 2 times he's used the ult. 1 time it's been super effective. That time it doesn't get them too much.
I see you.
So they're going to be able to fight a little bit more over here, but I don't know. You need more out of the jungle, or you're going to have to start seeing Stefan specifically pick up a lot of slack. I just think you have to have that pressure, or actually maybe Predators. But he's getting pressured out. He's a level behind. The jungle's a level behind. Your mid's a level behind. Like, experience is starting to skew very heavily in favor of JustF6. It's the first time in 2 games we've seen them with the early lead. And, well, they're playing it really well. 2,500 gold on top of that to boot. It's good. It's clean so far.
It's been a good start. Rottwen's rotating over, but I don't know if he knows there's an entire posse behind him. Froisan and DineOhSaw on the way to make life hard for the Xingqian, so he won't be able to get aggressive. Just gonna have to head right back towards the Tier 1 tower. I think he was considering try to see if we could find some kind of gank onto Curve. That won't actually materialize. But look at the difference in these Hunter starts. Curve has gone in for the Bloodforge before even the boots, whereas Totti did elect to finish the Ninja Tabi and is sitting on the Balance Blade, which he just turned into the Aussie. Bloodforge is a really good starting item, but without those boots and that extra movement speed, it can be hard to trade.
And you're starting to look, I mean, Totti already having a lot of, like, everything swinging in his favor, having the mark that he can throw onto Curve to make it go in his favor, having the Aussie passive help him in case he gets low. And now all of a sudden Curve can't outrun him either. It's going to be easy to chase him down. I think Curve is going to have to play carefully over in that lane. He's looking more for a farm game, which is admittedly what he wants right now. Totti could get aggressive, but we've seen Totti is perfectly happy just sitting around and farming as well.
He really has been up until now. I think we're finally starting to see a game where the Aussie makes some sense there for me, though. He has been taking a lot more fights in that left-hand side up against Curve. So if he's going to play this way, looking for lots of purple buff invades like he is right now and kind of getting aggressive in the enemy jungle, it's good. But he might be in trouble. There's a bit of a rotation coming out from Froi. You can see on the mini-map, Jutsu keeps him stunned. The beads means that he wants to take the fight, but DineOhSaw is here to give some backup. But using the dive bomb aggressively, just barely doesn't get the kill, but RemagDoku comes in to make it 1-for-1, ends up grabbing him in the whirlwind of range of steel. The Fear No Evil is there too, and now iSotos is rotating over on this Erlong Shen, and Froisan might be too far up in the lane trying to find the overhand smash. The 9-turns Blessing locks him down, and Soto gets the kill.
And Doku, just a good use of his stealth to be able to stay alive in that one, was so close to going down. He's going to be able to back it out. Now, Rottwen wants to. They could try to get aggressive. They're going to go ahead and call it off. Meanwhile, Oti, he's doing more of what he's been doing a lot of today, which is dominating the solo lane. Fortunately for Predators, that means he's knocked out and he's lost his tower.
Dominating King Arthur in lane, that is difficult. It's nowhere near as easy as it might look. So this has been just a really good day, if I'm being honest, from CaptainOti. I've been impressed by his play here so far. I think he's been the most consistent member of JustF6 here so far. And that's hard to do from the solo lane. It can be hard to impact the game all the time, but I think CaptainOti has done that so far.
Now, I might be saying something way too early.
Let me hear it.
And it's just because JustF6, like, we don't know who's going to qualify off this one. But this is a very important game. And honestly, as we've seen countless times today, 6-2 scoreline in this lead might not matter too much for the next few minutes. We'll have to see if JustF6 can keep it up. But the open bracket qualifiers into the Challenger circuit and what the Combine is, like, this JustF6 team is like the perfect example of why that stuff matters. They have been so incredibly strong and are potentially knocking out a team that everyone would have expected to make it into the Challenger circuit. I mean, it's just incredible. And so if you're watching this and you have a team, like, that's more reason to play.
Yeah.
Anybody can make it right now. And it's just been impressive to me.
It really has been from this squad. I mean, I said it back at the beginning of the day. These are not guys whose names I know very well, but there's no way to there's no metric for that. There's no stat for it. It does not matter at all when you go to the actual battleground as Froisan drops the Fear No Evil in an attempt to defend the purple buff. He does defend it, but that's a pretty big ultimate use just defensively there. I wonder if JustF6 can capitalize on that window where he doesn't have it.
I mean, honestly, go in. Doku now has a Fear No Evil, and where Froisan doesn't. That's where I start to look for gank potential. This Morgan has been paying off pretty well, 2-0-2 right now for Doku. Again, just a one-level lead over Mr. Stefan, but that's been massive for them as the fight looks like it could potentially swing over to the Gold Fury here. JustF6 won it, but they are more than willing to go in and dive on you before they take it.
Yeah, Froi are here for this. This is absolutely not going to be a secret, and JustF6 really might be trying to bait Froi in. I said, can they capitalize when Fear No Evil is down? It looks like that's what they want to try and do. Take a fight where they know that Froisan had to use his best cooldown defensively, but they can't seem to find a way to start it, so Rottwen ends up blinking in. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel forces Mr. Stefan to use the ultimate defensively for the CC immunity, but Predators have become the target over on the right-hand side. Fear No Evil from RemagDoku catches him, but Predators manages to worm his way out of there. Now they turn to DineOhSaw and execute Threshold, and CaptainOti is the one that gets the credit for it. Can't find the second one, though, but they keep up the dive underneath the Tier 2 tower. That's a double kill now for Oti on this Achilles, making a triple kill. My man's coming to life here today. Wants JustF6 to make it out of the group stages.
Froisan forced to run away off into the solo lane, and you get iSotos almost soloing down Curve and forcing him out of the fight. Either way, they're both effectively out of the game right now for him. So that lead, let's just go ahead and dial it up a little bit further. Take that gold, bump it up to about 6K, take that experience. I don't even know the number we're going to end at here because they've been farming so well for them, but knowing that they are this far ahead and playing at this level, I mean, Froi have 2 kills right now, I think their first check mark should just be, let's get another one on the board, guys. Let's try to find, in my eyes, Doku, but Odi's becoming a huge target. I think if you can kill off this Achilles, that might just save you in these fights.
It is big, but I just don't know if he's a viable target at this point anymore. He's got that enchanted buckler, so he is starting to work on some magic defense, and once that finished, the window might have snapped shut, man, and you just got to try and deal with him. RemagDoku is one that you definitely want to see if you can take out of these fights earlier, though. These transformations have been tremendously impactful, Goremizer, but they're now down 6,000 gold. It's going to get harder and harder for Froi to find some ways to get back into this one.
It's, you know, not just down 6,000 gold, but, I mean, look at the itemization, specifically the Doom Orb that was just hovered. It's pure power right now from Doku. He knows where his advantage is, and it's, I can kill you real good. And, well,
the
guess what
movement
he's going to continue
nice
doing. Yeah, it's going to be able to keep him alive. A lot of the stealth saves have been there for him. But Froisan was willing to fight Doku when Doku was a Hunbats. When it was just like mono-e-mono 1v1, that was great. The minute he shifted back to Morgan, Froisan had to run scared because Morgan's going to just melt him with this itemization. And now with the Spear of Desolation, you get a little bit of that flat pin online. Doku, as much as I want Odi to be a target, like you said, it's not necessarily going to be possible. Doku has to be your go-to. But that's leaving open Sotos, that's leaving open Totti when he starts rotating. It's just so dangerous.
I think you're right with Odi. If they can catch him like when the dash is down, perhaps, or something like that, and then maybe they have some opportunities. But I mean,
it's not going to be easy.
To me, this is really just an argument for playing something other than Sun Wukong. Look how much better the solo lane matchup went when Odi was on someone that could be more active throughout that that laning phase and had impactful rotations when he started to rotate around too. Man, I don't know, man. I'm just not sold on the Wukong. Odi is clearly someone who could win the matchup and run a game when you're not hamstringing him with mediocre picks. Fear No Evil comes out into Froisan on the right-hand side. He's low already. That's going to push him out. And RemagDoku wants to get in aggressive. Forces out the somersault from Froisan and forcing him out to leave. The Tier 1 tower does end up going down. And with this big 5-man grouping, they're going to try and threaten the Tier 2. DineOhSaw locked down, finds a 2-man stun of his own, but he gets taunted back in for the 9 turns blessing, and that's an easy execute for CaptainOti. Now they should be able to get the Tier 2 tower. Doku, not to be outdone, gets a kill of his own, takes down Mr. Steppen, and Froi now trying to step in thanks to Predators, but the Tier 2 tower is still pumping out damage. They haven't gotten it yet. Kerv gets the huge shutdown bonus.
That was going to be a good kill onto the tower. They get it low, but they didn't get rid of that Tier 2. They get a couple of pickups, and admittedly trading out Odi for it may prove not quite as worth as they want, but it's still not something that's against them. And Predators actually might get caught out here just because of what they have in the neighborhood. Totti's rotated in.
Totti's here, and that's going to be all the damage they can need, but Predators answers back quite nicely with this King Arthur. Froi finally showing us some signs of life. If you dive all the way past their Tier 2, then they can handle that fight. So certainly Froi still in striking distance, but I think F6 are the ones that are still in control here.
Yeah, definitely. I think being able to get rid of Odi, again, something that is going to become increasingly difficult as time goes on. But you eat his execute, you burn down him immediately afterward, and you save that Tier 2. There's an asterisk on that just because it's a 10% health, so it's going to go down pretty fast, but it's still available, which means that gold hasn't been converted over for JustF6, which has made it, I think, a lot more potent for you to continue your way into this. But you got to start finding some pressure because you do not have much on any of the towers that are standing for JustF6, and they still have all 6, by the way. Your ults are good, and the way you just used them was powerful. But you got to find picks, and I think they need to be big. Doku, like in moments like this, you need to be able to collapse in on them. Unfortunately, the team's just kind of scattered and all over the place.
Gore, help me out here, man. You like Morgan?
Yeah, she's pretty good.
You like her being level 17 when no one else is level 17?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think RemagDoku's in a pretty good spot here in this game right now, my man. He's had a monster performance so far, 3-0-3, and he has done it largely by just being a better Unbots than Froisan. And here's the thing that made the matchup kind of unfair, is that Doku had access to Fear No Evil before Froisan did in this game, right? Because he was able to hit level 5 before Froisan and catch him rotating into speed buff. That's kind of how all this momentum for JustF6 started, is they caught him out there and were able to bully him early on with his own ultimate ability, and Remagdoku just has not looked back since then. Really none of JustF6 has, especially CaptainOti, who had a great start in that solo lane as well to get him accelerated on this path that they're on right now. I think that Froi still have some tools though. Fear No Evil is still huge. DineOhSaw's ultimate is still a really big equalizer in these fights too. They just got to get their feet set in these fights and not get caught off guard by JustF6.
And that's a lot of what it is, right? Froisan, his Fear No Evils haven't been hitting quite as hard as Doku's, which when you pick Hunbats, you need to be the one making sure that your impact is felt. Not that the Morgan on the other side is doing it a little bit better than you. And so I think if he can rotate into these fights and maybe find it a little bit more, it has a lot more power into it, but you can't really afford moments like that, right? You have to be, well, maybe you do give up the Primal Fury,
maybe.
But around this Fire Giant Pyromancer as they've come through, or maybe the tier 2, depending on where JustF6 want to push, you've got to find the kills, and you can't afford to get caught out.
Well, I say it all the time. When you're behind, there are no more good fights to take as Rottwen blinks in with the Whirlwind Rage and Steel that clears up a nice space for the tier 2 tower to come tumbling down in favor of JustF6. Predators does get the tier 1 tower in right to answer, but look at this rotation. JustF6 are going to be here right when this Pyromancer spawns. They'll grab that, or maybe they'll just go right over to the Fire Giant. It's hard to tell from their positioning. They are probably going to go ahead and start with this Pyromancer. No, they're going to step forward and maybe see if they can bait out a fight.
I like the call here just because of where it could go, right? I think Pyromancer, it's easier to burn down. Fire Giant, like, you could have started it, but it's dangerous with Froisan still alive and still having Fear No Evil. Right now, I think you're take this, bait him out, try to pull him in. Either Sotos gets a good pin or Doku can find a good transformation. Or you just back. You, again, with Pyromancer, we talked about it, what, 2 games ago? Maybe last game, where just being able to rotate back into the fight around the Fire Giant pit is just so potent. And it's not something you necessarily think of as huge. Pyromancer's just I'm going to take it to get further ahead kind of objective. But it opens you up for this kind of play style where now you're back into it. You didn't really lose anything for that back. You actually end up gaining everything because you get to spend all of those items off. And I'm looking at Sotos. I like the chin size that he's built up. He's just becoming even more of a danger to Froi.
We see this sometimes, the Erlang Shen chin size build, right? But he's able to stick to you pretty well. Not quite as well as he used to when the Mink form had that haste on it, but he could certainly still get in some good shots every now and then. But I like this from JustF6. They got the Primal Fury, the tier 2 tower in mid, the Pyromancer, and a couple of the buffs off the Chaos side of the map. They went back, spent all that gold Gormizer, and now they're going to take this Fire Giant fight and basically dare Froi down 10,000 gold to come in and try and defend this objective. As Mifflin likes to say, you control this space when you're defending, and it's much easier to fight from this defensive entrenched position than as Froi, the one sieging in. As Doku wants to go in and find a stun, but there's nothing there.
I mean, at this point, you have a tier 2 that is quote-unquote safe over in the solo lane if you're Froi. And that's your safe haven, but if you're someone like DineOhSaw, you maybe get caught out too soon.
That really was a bait, though, and DineOhSaw had to come in and check into his face. But this is good return damage. Take a look at Rottwen. He's already at half. There's the ultimate out from DineOhSaw as well to try and even the playing field as Predators gets right to the back line, has found himself a target. It's Totti. He takes up to the sky. The Fear No Evil there from RemagDoku is there to play defense. The back line are able to fight off the dive for Predators and win that fight, but Kerv answers Sotos, but it's a 2-for-1 now in favor of JustF6 as CaptainOti shuts down Froisan. They may have lost their Erlang Shen, but the rest of the squad is here to fight.
I mean, that was perfectly played from JustF6. They waited until a couple of ults came down too soon from Froi, and because of those just slightly early clicks from them, it gives them a lot of good rotation and turnaround potential. I think losing Sotos loses a little bit of the pressure they would have had around the Fire Giant. I think he's going to be a lot of their melt potential along with that. But they weren't looking for that. They got the kills they wanted. They got the bait they wanted. I think if they had been able to find one more, we're looking at a different game state that is much more JustF6 heavy. But hey, I think they take it. 13-4, you only drop 1. And in the last, what, 3, 4, 5 kills, you only dropped 2? That's perfectly fine for them.
They've had a good fight so far. I don't know, though. I almost want to call that a success for Froi, even though it ends up being a 2-for-1, just because the Fire Giant's still up, right?
Yeah,
and
true.
JustF6 don't have it.
They're not losing as hard as they could be, which is actually a huge win.
Right, I agree. I think it could have been a lot worse there for Froi. So we'll see if they can stall these fights out a little bit longer. But look at what RemagDoku's working on. I got to imagine it's going to be a Magai's Cloak here in a moment. And that's all in the service of making it easier for him to find those dives. And so he does not get interrupted on his way to the backline when he's invisible. Then he can find the stun and transform right away, like he just did here on the DineOhSaw, who has to disengage right away. He lost 70% HP.
I mean, that is just the strength Morgan's going to be able to bring to it. It also helps maybe keep him safe. Of course, he has to finish it off before it can do anything to dive in on Froisan. All of a sudden, that Fear No Evil doesn't matter as much to you. You can maybe keep your beads online, which he's waiting 40 seconds before that's going to be here. Same thing for Sotos, about 50 seconds on that one. And those cooldowns are going to matter. This fight is going to have those rotations coming through. No beads are available across the board, which means CC is just as big, if not bigger, than a normal fight, which makes me turn my eyes towards Doku. He's been the bigger Hunbats in a lot of this, and I think his ult is going to be felt even harder.
He considers stepping in. It's a good thing he didn't. Predators was waiting on RemagDoku had he walked in just now. So now they are going to start up this Fire Giant to see if they can force the hand of Froi to step in. As you said, it'll be a little bit before the Purification beads are back up for just about everyone. So all this CC is going to hit home for a while as two members get thrown back. Mr. Stefan is already low, but he managed to survive. RemagDoku is the one that's in trouble, and Froisan finally finds the answer. But CaptainOti gets one of his own as they take down Predators. But I think that trade might favor Froi at this point.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, you shut down this Morgan, who's been incredibly potent, still has a 3-level lead over Stefan, and you stop the Fire Giant once again. Every delay in a Fire Giant is a win for Froi.
Agreed.
Because they're now starting to trade off 1-for-1. I don't care if you get any more deaths on the board because you're already so far behind. If you're dropping an 0-4 King Arthur, that's perfectly fine. It's just the presence around the other objectives of the map that will matter a lot, right? Not losing Fire Giant is great, but now you have to deal with an Oni Fury wave. You have almost no towers that you've taken. There's still 4 standing here for JustF6. You've got to figure out a way to turn these fights into something more beneficial for you. As of right now, I haven't seen them doing that.
They haven't been able to. Froi have, at this point, just been treading water. But as you said, when the current is this strong, I think treading water is still somewhat impressive that they've been able to hold on. I mean, look at Froisan. He's actually now past Sotos in terms of experience. He's level 19 as opposed to level 17 from this Erlong Shen. And the rest of the squad's starting to catch up. Curve 19 as opposed to 20 there from Totti. I mean, they're starting to get closer and closer to that striking distance. JustF6 probably still have 2 or 3 of these fights that they're heavily favored in, right, if they keep going exactly this way. But every one of them that Froi manages to stall out, they're getting closer to being back in this.
That's the good news about an XP lead, right? Is that there is a time limit on it. Sometimes you're not able to get there in time. But as of right now, Froi have been able to kind of maintain as long as they want. And right now, it's looking like a big dump onto Predators. They want to get rid of this King Arthur.
This is 2 ultimates they committed to him so far, but it has absolutely worked. Predators just got gobbled up by Sotos working together with Rottwen, who came in on the Xing Chen. And I wonder if they've maybe even given up on the FG and they just want to step forward and take the fight. Now that they got the numbers advantage, they are going to fall back and start the Fire Giant up. And I think Froi might have given up on defending.
Yeah, look where Froisan is. I mean, he's on the other side of the map. Wow. Yeah, maybe he can split push here and find a tier 2, but I'm going to tell you, Finch, not worthwhile with the way the game state is right now, the lead that JustF6 already have. That tier 2 is going to get traded out pretty easily. The gold that you're going to get from that on Froi is kind of negligible.
They're going to send CaptainOti back, too, so it's just going to be the tier 2 tower that ends up being grabbed. And I think this might have been a bit of a lapse of judgment from Froi. I understand why maybe you wouldn't want to try and defend the Fire Giant, but you'd want to be doing something more collected than that in the time if that was your call. Instead, Predators ends up getting picked by himself. They lose the Fire Giant basically for free. And JustF6, I gotta think they're gonna be favored on the actual Phoenix push. Maybe Froi liked their Phoenix defense a lot better than the Fire Giant fight, but twice in a row they stalled it out successfully.
I think it was where Froisan was already positioned. I don't know what the call was going into that. Fire Giant's been so big this entire time, but they sent him over there early in that fight. And the minute Predators was gone and there's no retaliation from a Hunbats, then he shows up on your mini-map on the other side. You're just like, wait a minute. I think I might smell a free FG. I mean, it couldn't have been any freer. Now you're in such a good, deadly position. Your Phoenix defense is pretty solid. I think DineOhSaw plus Froisan are going to be able to keep you alive. And Mr. Stefan, if he locks down a couple of members here, can make a huge turnaround, specifically onto someone like Doku. Getting rid of him is a huge priority.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to lock him down, and you got to stop him before he jumps into the backline as a Hunbats, which so far it just hasn't been the case. I think around the Phoenix, kind of controlling it and confining it to a small area lets Froi have a lot more of a chance to win this fight.
Well, make no bones about it, JustF6 are favored here. They've got such a tremendous gold lead still, but Froi are closer than they would have been if this happened 6 minutes ago. They bought themselves about that much relevancy in this fight. This is the fight that all that stalling was for here for Froi, was so that they can try and defend these Phoenixes and stay in the game. but JustF6 now have the minion waves pushed up in left and mid, and they're doing a 4-1 split with RemagDoku in middle to try and threaten whoever comes over to fight.
I mean, if you want to think about it, Doku is kind of acting like a second jungler anyway. Going to be in a 2v1 here. Might be a lot of pressure, but they take that as JustF6, the gas pedal on the left-hand side.
Yeah, they've got a 4v3 in left, and they're heavily favored. Mr. Stefan gets pushed all the way back to the Phoenix, and whoa, left side Phoenix is already gone. They drop the Suns. CaptainOti does get dove on, but Froisan can't find the kill. Instead, he ends up getting blown up. JustF6 keep their hunter or their solo laner alive, and they get the left side Phoenix.
And guess what? Doku still has, he still has the potential to have something turn around in their favor. Predators has his, but that's only going to be good to take someone out of the fight for a few seconds. This is definitely a good position for JustF6. With Froisan still out of the game for another 35 seconds, I want to see Doku change, go in, and enable his team to try and get the second Phoenix.
Yeah, the only Fear No Evil available right now is on the Order side, and they didn't even draft a Noonbots. They're threatening the mid-Phoenix now. They've got SCC located on the left-hand side to try and draw some attention over towards him. Into the actual Phoenix range they go, and Froi have to fall back. There's nobody here to defend. The mid-Phoenix has already been melted. JustF6 now on the cusp of potentially qualifying into the SCC. 5 players who really did not have a ton of name recognition coming into this event now potentially have a chance to make it in.
And right now they're making a tough call to make when you're in this much of a lead, but the right call, which is, let's not get too greedy. You have Froisan respawning, gonna have their ult soon. There's one more big engagement here before JustF6 can actually seal the deal. And they're probably gonna wait maybe a minute and 20 seconds, try and get that Fire Giant just to make sure everything's fully committed. They can back. This is the sell your boots, buy your 6 item, everything kind of back. That is going to enable everyone, I think, to become that much bigger. Once these ults come online, once you dance around, there's a kind of, well, actually, where all those pings are coming through, that's kind of where the line of scrimmage is right now. If you are Froi, going past that line's a dangerous game, and it's territory for death.
I think right now Froi is just going to have to hope and wait that their defense on that Phoenix is strong enough. Like I said, everything from about the 19-minute mark until the 27-minute mark from Froi was about trying to delay that Phoenix battle for as long as possible so that hopefully they can make the defense happen. But I just don't think that they were able to buy themselves enough time, Goremizer, and they end up losing 2 Phoenixes. Now they have to deal with Fire Minions, and this next Fire Giant I think is going to be going to JustF6 for free.
Well, they bought what JustF6 was selling, right? Which was, hey, I'm going to send Doku over here as like a gank. They sent 2 people to deal with Doku, and then nobody was able to shut him down. Meanwhile, you lose the fight on the left Phoenix, and now you're in a bad position.
Wow, Kerv has been popped already, and RemagDoku catches up to him, so Kerv taking out the fight early. Froisan in some trouble too, tries to get to the back line, but CaptainOti shuts him down handily. Predators tries to get to the back line too, but he's basically just running for his life at this point. JustF6 have found 2 big kills, make it 3 as RemagDoku gets his 5th kill of the game, and now it's just Mr. Stefan. No, hold that thought. It's just DineOhSaw on the Terra to try and defend up against the raft of JustF6.
Mr. Stefan trying to do literally anything right now in that passive, but it's not working for him. Minions are going to be pouring in along with the gods. JustF6 are looking solid.
They are looking solid. The Titan can't hold up against 5 members down below half, and DineOhSaw can't do enough on his own. JustF6 clinch the set here over Froi. The console boys, with all their experience, just weren't enough.
I mean, that is, again, exactly what you want from an open bracket qualifier into the group stage.
Wow.
Like, that is a huge win, and that's what they've had all day, right? That first win, that first set really not going their way, 60 being able to take that, kind of looks shaky for JustF6, but these last 2 sets have solidified exactly what they're capable of, and that last game, more than anything, shows where their mechanics are at. That was really well played.
It really was there from them. I mean, 2 clinical games in a row, you kind of have to say that you just saw here. It is JustF6 the ones that end up coming out on top. But don't worry, if you're a bit confused about everything that happened with all these group stages, we're going to break it down for you over at the Bologna set.
Nice use of the Bologna set, Finch. Nicely done. And nicely done to JustF6, your newest team to the Smite Challenger Circuit. Congratulations to them. Aggro with Mifflin here on the Bologna set. I mean, this is not a team that everyone was looking at when we were talking about Group B at the very beginning of the day. But here they are at the very end. They clutch it out up against Just Froi.
I mean, the entirety of today, they have been the dark horse team. I wouldn't have expected them to beat many of the people that they have. These guys really do have no name. Chat, we have to study up for some of these players to really know what to talk about when we're casting and on the desk. I went to Wikipedia. I went to Smite Esportspedia. I called my mom. No one could tell me anything.
Your mom didn't know any of these guys?
None of them.
Wow.
It blows my, and she knows everything.
Impressive there, I suppose. JustF6. John Finch's lab is overpowered, bro. It's undefeated. I can't help myself against it. 22,000 damage for CaptainOti, who was, for my money, alongside RemagDoku. Those two stood out to me all day today for who was the best players on JustF6. Those two, the solo and the mid, were absolutely impressive.
I mean, RemagDoku wasn't really impressing me game 1 and 2, but now that we finally got him on a meta pick, he has shown that he is actually very mechanically talented. But if I have to give anyone MVP, it's CaptainOti. They truly did not have an answer for him on this Achilles, and he made short work of the Froi boys, just constantly involved in all of these fights, finding these key executes, as well as just chaining his CC to make sure his team can. Wow, I'm sorry, this play is breathtaking.
Listen, man,
I love this.
He got the double kill either way at the very end. Pretty much gets the triple there once Predators land.
Literal triple.
Hey, that's easy for him at the end of the day. And this JustF6 team, clearly, I mean, they're going to go up against some very, very difficult competition. Teams like Belt Slap in Group A, and you can check out what happened in Group A on screen right now. By the way, if anyone in chat wants to watch these Group A games, we will be broadcasting some of them tomorrow on the SmiteGame channel with the amateur casting team, so make sure you check that out. I believe right after this broadcast today, we were doing some of Group A from what we saw in North America yesterday. And here's the entirety of Group B. Freshly Forged, despite that loss up against the Poppies, ended up going undefeated the rest of the day, so they will also be joining us in the Smite Challenger circuit. As you can see exactly who that will be. It's Belt Slap, Snake Pit, Cold Llamas from Group A, Poppies, Freshly Forged, and JustF6 at the 2-2 mark that make it in Group B.
What's your takeaway on Freshly Forged? Personally, they're so hot and cold for me, I can't truly get a read on them, and I've been personally following every single game they've played this year.
Yeah, I think that they will likely end up as a 4th, 5th team with the way that they're playing right now. I mean, it's just clearly, as you said, they're too inconsistent right now, and I think Belt Slap and Cold Llamas are the two you really have to look at in this region. Belt Slap in particular, I mean, that's, Zeros and Trix Tank and everybody. That team is absolutely stacked, and I think they're the one to watch out for.
If Freshly Forged can find a way to get themselves back into practice, it seems like maybe they're just lacking a shot caller, or maybe they just aren't scrimming as much as the other teams. If they start picking that up, they might be able to match Belt Slap and the other boys.
They've got the talent.
They've got all the talent they could possibly need. It's really whether or not they have the drive.
Yeah, that's the real question mark for them, because these guys are SPL level talent. And speaking of SPL, it's starting real soon in 1 week. SPL begins 1 week from today, so make sure you're right here, twitch.tv or mixer.com/SmiteGame for all your SPL action, the kickoff for Season 7. Can't wait for that. Thanks so much for watching throughout all these SCC qualifiers from all of us here in the casting team and, of course, from the production studio. We'll catch you next time and next week here on the show.